I know it's hot. If the door staying open gets too, I can generally talk really loud, but if it gets too distracting, please don't hesitate to let me know, and we'll suffer through closing the door. Probably won't get any hotter in here anyway. So, my name is Connie Swaim, and just for those of you who don't know me, I thought I'd give you a little bit of background information about me before we get started. I'm a certified trainer through the Karen Pryor Academy. It's an internationally known animal training facility. It's probably one of the two most well-known animal training facilities, the other one being through the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. So it's a 6-month course. I had to pass a practical test, written test. I had to train my dog to do a 10-piece behavior chain, stuff like that, so that people know that I really could do what I said I could do. No one has to be certified in any way, shape, or form to call themselves a dog trainer or a behaviorist. There are no laws about that. So when I talk to people, especially people who are looking for dog training or people who are looking for any kind of behavior help, ask the person what their background is. Ask them if they've ever done any training. I came up through going through seminars. I turned out I'm a seminar junkie. And once I found out that canine communication and canine cognition was so fascinating, I could not get enough of going to seminars until I left my high-paying job that afforded me to go out to all those seminars and went into animal welfare. And then I could no longer afford to go to any seminars. So luckily, I went to a lot of seminars while I still had a nice high-paying job. So I also started out in a sport called Schutzen. It's now called IPO. If you've ever seen it, it's a lot of the dog bites a bite sleeve. It's a lot of kind of how you might think of a police dog training, but more for sport. It tends to be a very force-based training. All right, sorry.
Even if we just shut it like almost all the way, it's even distracting me, and I'm used to listening to that.
So that kind of came up through a very force-based training thing. I ruined a dog doing Schutzen, so that's how I decided to go into all positive dog training. So that's how I kind of got into the whole positive reinforcement, clicker training kind of thing. And that's when I decided to go ahead to do that. I dance a lot. Karen Pryor thing. I'm also a handler. I'm certified through the Indiana Department of Homeland Security for human remains detection. Sadly, my canine partner died a few months ago. So bringing another dog up through the ranks, but I do search and rescue as well. I'm the author of a book called Puppies. Sadly, it's also called The Idiot's Guide, but I did not get to call it that. It's just the brand name, and it kind of makes me feel bad because I don't think people are idiots, but Idiot's Guides, Puppies. In October, I started my own business. I spent 5 years with the Humane Society of Indianapolis full-time as their director of canine training. I was there 2 years before that as a volunteer, so 7 years there. Started my own business, so now I'm doing animal training and behavior. But what I do a lot is canine communication, because almost everything that we have a conflict with a dog is communication driven. So we're going to talk about basically 3 kinds of things in the talk. We're going to talk first about animal communication, how dogs communicate to each other and how that communication looks to us, and what are you inadvertently communicating to the dog when you are with a dog. We're also going to talk a little bit about dog introductions. That's mainly for some of the staff, but we may go through some other things just so volunteers also know what that looks like in case we ever go back here to play groups and something like that. And we're also going to talk about behavior issues, especially behavior issues that are common in the shelter setting. So I'm going to try to have a question period at the end of each of those segments so you don't have to hold a question clear to the very end. If it's something that you have a question because you can't understand what I said and it's important to you before we move forward, I'm happy to also take questions during the talk, but if possible, just write them down, and I will stop every once in a while and ask questions. And at the very end, I would like for you guys to be thinking about dogs that are here right now that are going to be good examples of issues that you are having and hopefully we will be able to bring 1 or 2 of those dogs in here. I also plan to bring in my real dog. This is Spot. He's also going to help me. He's my best dog. No behavior issues with him. So, but I'm also going to bring Skywalker in, probably at the end of the part where I'm going to talk about canine body language and behavior, because he is going to throw a lot of behaviors at you when he sees you. He's very nervous around new people, so you're going to be able to see some of the things, because it's one thing to talk about them, but it's something completely different to actually see them. But I know some of you are staff and that you may have to come and go during the talk, and if I don't get to the part of the canine handling that you really wanted to talk about, we will figure that out. So no worries there. All right, so we're gonna start with something really obvious, okay? Dogs don't speak a verbal language. They don't speak English, they don't speak any verbal language. So when you are in the kennel going, hush, quiet, stop it, get down. What are you doing? Come here. Oh, I love you. Don't be afraid of me. I love you. I'm your friend. The dog is like, no. Oh, no, I hate that word. No, that no scares me. Bad things happen to me. Did you say cookie? I like the word cookie. Can you say the word cookie again? So the dog may be listening for 1 or 2 words he knows. Very probably the dog you're talking to knows no words whatsoever. They're actually doing a lot of research now about how many words dogs actually pick up versus how many dogs do things for us because they interpret our body language correctly. So if you ever have a dog, if you have a dog at home and you want to know if your dog knows sit, turn around, don't make eye contact with him, put your hands behind your back and ask him to sit. If he does, he knows the word sit. If he doesn't, he's probably keying off of something in your body when you are saying the word sit. So it's important for us to go into this, understanding that dogs don't speak a verbal language, and also understanding that we are verbal and we cannot help how verbal we are. So it is a constant struggle for us to remember that we are speaking to something that reads an entirely different form of communication. So dogs are very good at communicating, and they are super awesome at communicating with humans and very good at understanding what humans are telling them. Unfortunately, what you may be telling the dog may not be what you think you are telling the dog. So the first thing we want to talk about is how dogs talk. So when dogs talk to each other, they basically only say 2 things. Hi, I like you. You look friendly. Let's sniff each other. Let's play. Oh, no. You are making me very, very nervous, and I need to step away from you. So dog communication is all about distancing, social distancing. We're either decreasing the social distance because we're going to interact and be friends, or we are increasing the social distance because something about the interaction is making us nervous. It is the increasing distance that we do a very poor job of reading from the dog and of the dog reading what our intentions are. So you have to think that all dogs are about distancing. So what is the dog telling you when you see it? Is he saying, come up and be my friend? Or is he saying, if you take 1 more step into my kennel, I plan to rip your face off? So those are obviously very important things to know, because there are no dogs that bite because they are bad dogs. There are dogs that may have learned that people are dangerous and they have to hurt the person before the person hurts them. But when dogs bite, unless they have been trained as police dogs, have been trained as bite dogs, or have already learned that the human-animal bond is broken, dogs only bite out of fear. So if you are bitten, you were bitten because you missed something. When I go into people's homes, because I just got bitten the other day, and the dog bites me, I always tell them it's my fault that I was bitten. I missed something. Well, I didn't miss it. The person dropped the leash. Not a good thing. But I should have had a better control over that dog. I should have back-tied him rather than rely on his owner to hold the leash for me in that situation. So it's important for us to start to read dogs because they are begging us to please pay attention to them. And a lot of the dogs that you're going to see here are probably on the verge of giving up. They have been talking to people for all of their lives saying, you are terrorizing me. Please just listen to me and give me a little bit of space. So what does that exactly look like? We say hello to dogs the same way we say hello to people. We make a lot of direct eye contact with each other. We can't help it. Men, you make more direct eye contact with women. It's not your fault. You just do. So men, we always say, oh, that dog has probably been abused by a man. He's more afraid of men. Probably not. It's just because the man is making more direct eye contact than a woman would be, which the dog is going to perceive as a threat. Because direct eye contact between two dogs is a threat gesture. If you're ever watching two dogs out in the play yard or your own two dogs, maybe you see one, they're getting their playing and all of a sudden the play gets too rough and you might see one dog put his head or paw on top of another dog's head or back. It's kind of like a threat, kind of like, I'm not sure about you anymore. If I do this to you, are we going to have a problem or are you going to be okay with me? Same thing you might see even a Chihuahua. My Chihuahua does this to my Shepherd all the time. Stands up really, really tall and tries to put his head or back over the other dog's head. Again, a kind of a threat gesture. I'm not sure we're going to get along, so you're making me nervous and I have to threaten you. So direct eye contact, touching the dog on top of the head, bending over the dog. That's how dogs threaten each other. So how do you say hello to a dog? Hi, buddy! You're the cutest thing I've ever seen. Yes, you are. I love you. You're such a good boy. Hi, do you get kisses? Dogs love me. They all love me. I love to get kisses. I want to hug you. You are such a good boy. Yes, you are. So, my voice said, I love you, Spot. You're the best dog ever. My body language said, I'm a Tyrannosaurus Rex and I am here to kill you. So, the dog now has to make a decision. That decision is going to be based on a lot of things. How much socialization did that dog get prior to the age of 4 months? Did he meet 250 to 350 different people before the age of 4 months? If he did, he's well on the way of being a well-socialized puppy. Did he have bad experiences with people after that critical socialization window? Have most of the people that he's met been mean to him, or have they threatened him? Or have the people he met been good to him and they have not threatened him? When a dog meets a person he doesn't know, a lot of his behavior is going to be based on what I call the bank. So either he's had a lot of deposits which are really good. So if one person makes a bad move toward the dog, he has enough background to know that most people don't behave that way. But if most of his interactions with people have been poor, even when someone comes along who isn't intentionally going to be cruel to him or threaten him, he may have already decided that I'm done with something like that. So for those of you who have dogs at home and are already thinking in your head that I'm stupid and I don't know anything because you all pat your dog on top of the head and he's fine with it, yes indeed, he probably is. Our own pet dogs are smart, and they, in the first few weeks that you have them, go, you guys are weird, I don't understand why you have to pet me on top of the head. But you seem nice. I love your couch. Cookies are pretty good here. You have not ever actually hurt me after you have done this to me. So our own pet dogs tolerate things that they may not tolerate from other people. These are dogs here that we don't know what has happened to them in the past. I can tell you that most of them have probably felt threatened at one point or another. We also have to think about the fact that dogs are fight or flight animals. So what that means is dogs would prefer to have the choices of running from danger or fighting danger. No dog, unless there is something wrong with that dog, is going to choose fight. There is no etiological reason to choose fight, because fight can injure you to the point where you can't hunt. Not being able to hunt means you're going to die. So even though your dogs here are not hunting, their instinctual brains still control a lot of how they think about their world. So that's also important for us to understand. They are fight or flight animals. If flight is possible, most dogs will choose flight, again, unless they have already learned flight is not always going to be a good option for them. So this is also why shelter dogs have so many more issues in terms of growling or snapping or hard staring at people, because they are in tiny little kennels, and you, the stranger, are standing at that kennel gate staring right at them going, "Hi puppy, I'm here to take you for a walk. Yes I am, I'm your friend today." And the dog is like, "Oh my God, I can't get out of here. This is bad. I don't know this person and she's staring at me and she's got this really weird rope thing in her hand and I better just go bite her now because she is scaring me." So sometimes we have to think about that when we are getting dogs in and out of the kennel. So when I go up to a dog, and especially a dog that is backing away from the kennel gate, I'm going to be sideways to the dog. I'm never taking my eyes off the dog, but I'm not making direct eye contact. I'm watching the dog out of the side of my eyes. I might get down low. I am not going to stick my hand up to that kennel gate because A, he smelled me already. He does not need my hand closer to his nose for him to smell me. And he may perceive my hand moving closer to him as a threat. I want to see what he does. Does he want to stick his nose out towards me? Is he backing up away from me? If he's coming forward, he's looking like he wants to get out, then I'm going to proceed. If he's backing up, I might choose to do something else, like throw him treats, which we're going to talk about a little later. But you want to make sure that your body posture is as least threatening as possible. So keep yourself sideways. Don't stare at the dog. Watch him out of the corner of your eyes. Always let him come to you if at all possible. If he comes to you, you are speaking dog. If you go to him and he's trapped in a corner, you are not speaking dog. You are threatening him. So I want to talk about the Torrid Rugus handout that I gave everybody. It's a little bit harder to do in the shelter system because you do not know what this dog looks like when he's calm or relaxed, as a general rule. I generally want people to know what their dog looks like relaxed. Where does your dog carry his tail? Where does your dog carry his ears when he is relaxed? Because if he changes his ear or tail position, that is important. The number one thing I want to tell you though is please do not look at wagging tails and make a decision based on what that dog's intentions are. If you watch videos of dogs attacking people, their tails are always wagging, always. Dogs wag their tails for lots of different reasons. A few of those tail wags mean, hey, I'm friendly, come closer. Some of these tail wags mean, I am getting very nervous, please get away from me. So, don't necessarily look at whether the dog's tail is wagging, unless it's a little hippo kitty and its entire butt is swinging back and forth with a tail wag. That's always going to be a nice little friendly tail wag. But instead of tails wagging, I want to look at where the tail position is. If a dog normally carries his tail like this, and suddenly his tail goes up really tall, or he curls his tail really tight over his back like this, he's probably scared and he's trying to threaten. Look how tall I am. I am this tall. You should stay away from me because I am really, really tall. Stay away from me. He puts his tail down over his butt, or he curls that tail really tight under his tummy. When dogs meet each other, they sniff each other's butts. So if a dog puts his tail down over his butt, he is clearly saying, do not come closer to me because I am not going to let you sniff my butt. So both of those mean, give me space for slightly different reasons. The ears down, we know that. The dog puts his head down like this, very submissive gesture. Please don't kill me, you're making me really nervous right now. Give me space. Some dogs will prick their ears really far forward. Again, they may be trying to threaten something back away from them. You may see a lot of wrinkling increase on the dog's forehead. Again, some of these are harder if you don't know what the dog looks like when he is relaxed. So start to really pay attention to the tail position and the ear positions of the dogs that you are working with. Other things to watch for: lip licking. It's going to be fast little tongue flicks out, really fast, really short. Generally not the entire tongue coming out of the dog. So fast little tongue flicks. All of the things we're going to talk about mean the dog is getting nervous about something and he's trying to do his best to tell you he is not a threat or to tell you to please give him space. So the tongue flick is one of the things that they will do. Yawning. You're often going to see this yawning and the tongue flick really close together. The other thing you're going to see a lot in the shelter system is a shake off. So it's not like they're cold shaking, but like they're flipping water off their coat. It's an adrenaline dump. That just means that things have kind of gotten really stressed for a few minutes and the dog is going, oh my gosh, whoa, that was a lot. I need to take a minute and process this. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to stop what you are doing, but it is important information for when you're working with a dog. If you're approaching a dog and the dog's head is going like this away from you, this is a back up signal. This is social distancing. I don't see you. Please don't come any closer because I'm turning into a pretzel now, so I don't see you. This is often when you're going to see that whale eye. So a whale eye is something we talk about a lot in kenneling. So a whale eye is white showing around the dog's eyes. There are some dogs like puggles and those really bug-eyed breeds that show white around their eyes naturally. Most dogs, when they are not stressed, do not show white around their eyes. If you start to see a lot of white showing around the dog's eyes, back up away from the dog because that's what the dog is asking you to do. If you're out in a run with a dog and you approach the dog or the dog is doing something like he's coming up to you and he's backing off, he's coming up to you, he's backing off, he's turning his head away, very conflicted. He might want to come up and be friends, but he's learned from past experience probably not going to go well for him. The best thing you can do with a dog that seems nervous is ignore it completely. It is so hard for us to do that, and it's not your fault, okay? Again, we are driven by our own instincts and our own humanness. So what happens is we see shy dogs the same way we see kind of like an abandoned baby kind of thing. So we're kind of genetically programmed to keep that baby alive, to keep the human race going. So when we see these sad little creatures, part of our brain kicks in and goes, baby in distress, must help this baby. Oh, little doggy, I am your friend. I am here to help you. Please do not be nervous. So we would go to the dog and we want to love it because that's what our instincts tell us to do. Great if it's a human baby, bad if it's a dog of any kind. So again, we just threaten the dog. Of the 4.5 million dog bites in the United States every year, more than half are to children under the ages of 11. Children get bitten a lot. The Centers for Disease Control says the age group between 5 and 9 is the most bitten age population in the United States. 77% of dog bites are to a person's face, and 77% of dog bites are from almost always the family dog. But here, we have dogs in unknown situations, but the 77% of dog bites to the human face is important because what do we do? Fluffy! I love kisses. Yes, I do. Do you give kisses? I love them. So again, no, they don't kiss. Have you ever seen two dogs kissing each other? They lip lick each other. That's kind of like, I'm getting stressed, so I'm gonna lick your lips so that you calm down a little bit. So it's a stress gesture Not a, I love you, I'm gonna lick your face, unless it's your own dog at home who has learned that you go absolutely bananas when he licks your face. So it's very rewarding for him, and so he's going to keep doing that. Hugging is the same way. Dogs are not hugging each other, okay? If you're two dogs doing this, this is not a hug. This is, hey, I may be about to kill you and shake you by the neck. This is not a hug, okay? So when we do this, again, this is a human thing to do. So you actually have to stop yourself from doing some of these things just because it's what your instincts tell you to do. Because for the dog, this is not necessarily the best thing to do. And this is also why 77% of dog bites are to a person's face. So the best way to interact with a dog you don't know outside of the kennel is, again, to be sideways to the dog. And I'm gonna let the dog see if he'll come up to my hand, because super social dogs have already learned this hand might have something that you want. It's gonna have a cookie or it's gonna scratch you. Instead of going like this, I am going to go like this. So I'm going to scratch the dog here, or I'm going to scratch him here under the chin. So male dogs especially like to be scratched right here, because that's where, when they're mating, they get scratched a lot. So when you see your male dog and he's like, yes, please do that some more, they like that, and that's okay, but that's why it's good a lot of times to scratch dogs, even female dogs, right here. They like it. It's much better than hitting them on top of the head. Again, unless you know the dog enjoys this, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to try to always scratch the dog under his chin, maybe behind his ears, but then you get into a dog that may have a lot of the dogs that come through shelters, they have really nasty yeast infections in their ears. We don't know. So I'm going to watch that, and if I'm scratching here, I'm going to be really cognizant of what that dog is doing with his mouth. Also going to pet him along the sides like this, but I'm also going to watch his body language. The number one issue I see in public and in the shelter system is people who are not paying attention to the dog that is on the end of their leash. I'm sure that you guys have all been told, be aware, don't talk to people, don't chat, don't be on your cell phone. But again, we are so human, it is hard to do. So I see people all the time talking to each other, looking out to see what that dog is barking at by the road. Is there a pretty bird flying by? What was that I just heard? And we end up not paying a lot of attention to the dog. So in public, what we're going to see too, people whose dogs are on a flexi lead, they're in PetSmart and their dog has already gone around the corner and God knows what's happening because they can't see it. But even here in the shelter setting, you need to be aware of your dog, that dog that you are walking around, because when people tell me, oh, he bit without warning, no, he didn't bite without warning. He warned, we missed it. Now, a lot of dogs may learn that biting gets them what they want faster because they've learned that we aren't paying attention, but he would have given some small warning. So that's why it's important for us, especially if you're walking a dog and a public person, like somebody who wants to come and see the dog, wants to pet it, if they have children with them, you have got to be aware of what the dog is doing on your end of the, on his end of the leash, so that he will be, so we don't set him up into something where he feels that he has to bite or grab, so he's not going to get adopted. The other thing people do, and again, we can't help it, we have a treat, and we go, hi scared and shy dog, I have a cookie for you. Can you get the cookie? Come and get the cookie. Yes, come on. Come and get that cookie. I want you right here. I got you. Yay! And the dog is like, oh, I fell for that again. Jeez, how many times do they have to offer me the food before I figure out that they are going to touch me or catch me? So when I'm working with shy and fearful dogs, especially dogs that are in their kennel, and I don't feel comfortable at this point taking them out, I'm going to throw treats to the dog, okay? Whatever has happened to this dog in the past of his life, nothing like that has happened. So probably there is no bad association unless it's your hand, but I'm usually going to try to keep my hands short and just like that. Don't do a baseball wind-up because that could be threatening to the dog, okay? So I'm going to keep my body sideways. I'm pretending that Spot is very scared. See, look, Spot's head is down. He's not looking at me. He's a little nervous about what's going on right now. So I'm going to throw some treats to Spot, okay? Now it's in Spot's corner, what he wants to do in terms of working with me. Does he want to stay in his corner? That's fine. Maybe all I do in the kennel with him that day is let him stay in his corner. Again, I get it, because I've been a volunteer. Darn it, we just want to get them outside so they can go potty, and we're sure they're going to be so much happier out there going for a walk. But they might not be. Maybe they'd be happier if you just let them chill in their kennel and showed them that people will respect them and let them trust humans again. So if I have a dog that's shaking in the corner, not coming up to me, I might not force him to go on that walk. I am just going to stand in the kennel or outside the kennel, and I'm going to throw treats to the dog. I'm not going to talk to him. This is so hard for us to do, but again, if you start talking to him, you are going to look at him. You can't help it. The more when we talk, we look. So if you talk to this dog, you are going to end up making direct eye contact with him. Once the dog seems okay with me, I might go, hey puppy, what a good puppy. I'll do nonsensical things. I'm not going to have a conversation and say, I'm here to be your friend, hey quit barking, hush. Because or no, whatever you do, don't say no, hush, back off. These dogs have heard those things thousands and thousands of times already, and they're not doing any good. So say things that he probably hasn't heard before. Happy, high-pitched voices. Hey, puppy! What a good puppy! Stuff like that. But I'm also going to wait and see if the dog starts to look toward me. If in the beginning I have a dog that's got his head turned away, but he's eating the treats, but then I notice he looks towards me, I'm only going to throw the treat if he looks towards me. Now I'm training this dog without him even knowing it. I'm training him that when he looks at the people at the kennel gate, he is going to get a cookie. Do you know why people adopt dogs? They adopt the dog that picks them, okay? They do not adopt the dog because it's the right dog for them or anything else. They come in, they see a dog, something in their brain goes, that dog picked me. He picked me. He's the one I want. So you want to train the dogs to think that coming to the kennel front and putting a paw up on the kennel front is a good thing, because if you have a dog that sits in the kennel and puts his paw up, the person is going to go, I didn't come in for a 95-pound dog. I love it. I can't wait to take him home into my tiny little apartment. They picked me. I can't help it. So it happens. So and we fall for it. My Batman, who died a couple of years ago, went to the Humane Society to get the dog in the kennel next to him because I'd seen it online, and the dog in the kennel next to him was the dog I wanted. Everything about that dog was what I wanted. Saw Batman. He was shivering in a corner. Poor little dog. I'm a magnanimous person. I'm going to take this dog out as well. I'm going to get this dog over here, but this dog, I'm just going to be nice while I'm here. I'm very generous. Take him out. Took him to a kennel outdoor run. The other dog had been playing, throwing a ball. It was doing great. Threw a ball. I was down on the ground. Batman came up to me, didn't look at the ball. He sat right in front of me. He put a paw here, his chin here, and he went, oh my God! He picked me! Everett, for 10 years, I said, you tricked me. You sat in that kennel and go, how can I get someone to adopt me? But it's true, if we can get the dogs to interact with us at the kennel front or out in the yard, people are going to adopt them. It's the other thing that I see when we have the dogs out in the yard. We want them to play because, again, that's their time to be outside. But if somebody wants to take this dog home with them and they go out into the kennel run with them, and that dog spends all of its time racing around the kennel, the person is not going to think that dog picked them. They're just going to go, gosh, that dog is a lot of work. Look how much he runs. I don't want that dog. No, man, I want the couch potato dog. So I want dogs to learn that when they are in a yard or at the kennel front, the person who they are interacting with has something that they want, and they should come up and investigate it. But the first step is to make sure that if you're working with that shy and fearful dog, that he knows that he doesn't have to. So I start to look and see, does the dog want to come up to me? So I'm going to be tossing treats. After a while, the dog is going to go, man, you seem to have an endless supply of treats. You're not asking me to sit. You're not asking me to down. You're not saying bad dog to me. You are giving me food for no absolute reason in the world, except that every once in a while I look for you. So then I might have a dog that goes, hi, and maybe have some more of that food? And the dog comes closer, and depending on the dog and its body language, I may ask the dog to move farther away from me in the beginning, because I also want the dog to know that we don't have to get really, really close in order to have a relationship. But then I'm going to start to see if the dog wants to take treats out of my hand. I'm sure you all know this, but this is the way to be bitten. Right here, you've got the treat right in your fingers. How is the dog going to get this treat out of your hand? He's going to rip it out of your fingers. And when you realize it's going to happen, you're going to jerk your hand back, and you just taught the dog to get the food by jumping forward and biting the hand harder. So, and I usually protect my thumb. So I'm going to keep my thumb, and I'm going to keep sideways to the dog. I'm going to stretch my hand out as far as possible. I'm going to see, does the dog want to eat the treat out of my hand? If he does, great. I'm probably going to throw some more treats away from me a couple of times just so he realizes this is a give and take kind of game. And then I want to see what the dog will do next. So this might be harder to see, but I want to see if I can pet the dog, especially a shy or fearful dog that's making me unsure if the dog wants human contact. If I've been feeding him treats like this and he's taking them and he seems to be getting more and more relaxed, I am going to put the treats in this hand, and I'm going to put this hand in front of this hand, and I'm going to hopefully be sitting down or squatting if I can. If the dog wants these treats and isn't too scared, his chin is going to come across my empty hand, and I now have my hand here, and it was his idea. So now I just taught the dog that when he sees a hand out like this, he should come forward and get scratched here. This also stops you from inadvertently petting the dog on top of the head. So it's a good way to keep the dog coming closer and closer to you. So for the things about body language, the big thing is just to remember that the dog is talking to you. And if you start to really watch these dogs, you are going to be amazed at how much information they're going to be able to tell you. There is a caveat that you may never be able to go to a dog park again, because you're going to go, oh my God, what are they doing, and why are those owners not seeing it? I have a really hard time now going to any events where I see a lot of dogs, because I see so much conflict behavior. And the good news, bless their little souls, most dogs handle conflict great. They're in giant situations, and they generally aren't going to go to a bite or something like that, especially your owned dog, the dogs that have a bond with their owner. But here, we just have to be more careful, especially with these shy and fearful dogs. So I'm going to take a break in a minute, but I want to talk about Jeeves, whose name here was Tanner. And how long ago was Tanner here?
Oh, geez. A year now.
A year? Okay.
He was yellow.
Yeah. So Tanner, I just worked with his owners 2 weeks ago. Tanner's a little pity, so obviously we've got a strike against us. He's a blocky-headed kind of dog, okay? Very shy and fearful. He was on the rescue-only list because he was shut down, right? He was shut down in the kennel. No one could get him out. He's the dog we're talking about, a very shy and fearful dog, okay? Mended Hearts took him and worked with him, and he got 2 fabulous, really, really fabulous owners. These people are being very proactive. If they had not been proactive, this dog is probably a bite waiting to happen, because he's worried about strangers who come into their home, and he's worried about strangers that he sees on a walk. He loves his owners, and they, thank goodness, love him, and they turn out to be super easy to work with. All you have to do is teach him that people coming through the door are going to throw chicken at him, and he is like looking at that door going, come in, bring the chicken. Like the chicken. So we took a dog who was growling and lunging at the door at people who were coming in, so that these people really were having a hard time having company and things like that, to a dog that goes, yeah, as long as everybody has the rules and they bring the chicken and they don't look at me and they don't make me come up to them. So I was there like an hour and a half, and at the end Jeeves was coming up to me and he was allowing me to scratch him under the chin. When I first came in, he was big and stiff and going, haven't decided if I'm going to eat you or not. But what I liked about him was he would come forward and back up. Always, if you're working with a dog, the dogs that rush forward and immediately back up are much better to work with, because they are still giving you a lot of information that you can work with, versus the dog that is right here looking at you. One last thing before the break, before I take some questions and bring Skywalker in so we can look at some behavior. You still have innate instincts in you that would have kept you alive when you were on your own in the wild. So, without you realizing it, your brain processes information when you see something with canines. Your brain is telling you something about that dangerous animal, even though he might be a dog. If you feel strange about a dog, do not discount that feeling, okay? Do not ever. I just worked with a dog that scared me more than any dog that's ever scared me, and he never bit me or anything. But 3 different times, he came up to me, he put his nose in my belly button and went completely still. Didn't move, didn't walk away when his owner called him. I was doing nothing, and I had been throwing treats away from me, and he came up, every hair on the back of my neck went up. And I'm like, telling, and it was a foster, it's a dog in a rescue, and I'm telling the foster owner, happy voice, because what I didn't want her to do in that situation, because she saw it too, was yell at the dog, because that probably would have tripped him into biting. And thank God she was an awesome foster person, and she's going, puppy! The dog snapped out of it. But listen to yourself, okay? I quit working with that dog and we put him back on a leash, because I don't know what he was thinking, but my tummy was telling me that I did not want to get liposuction at that time in this way, okay? So listen to yourselves. I tell volunteers all the time, do not walk a dog if you are not comfortable walking that dog. A, that dog knows you're not comfortable. You may not read his body language very well, but he reads yours. So if a dog, a friend of mine trains diabetic alert dogs, those dogs alert when your blood sugar hits a number or below. If a dog can know what your blood sugar is a specific number, you can bet he knows if you start perspiring more, or if your face wrinkles more. So he's going to look at you and go, why are you nervous? I wasn't nervous, but you're nervous. You're making me nervous. Now you're really nervous. Whoa, now you're nervous and I'm in a little place? Why are you staring at me? You look really nervous. Oh, you're sweating? So, it is not wrong to not want to take a certain breed out. I do not like to work with Cocker Spaniels, okay? So, I will do it, but I know that about myself, okay? Cocker Spaniels tend to make me nervous. So if there's a breed of dog that makes you nervous, that's not bad. Then you need to work with someone who likes that breed to see if they're okay. But especially if you're working with a dog and something suddenly triggers you, that things aren't what you might think, or the hair goes up on the back of your neck, stop whatever you're doing and be safe. It is always better to be safe than to put a dog on a bite report, or for you to have to go to the hospital because you have a giant gash in your arm. All right. Does anyone have any questions about body language or what we talked about? Yes.
Hugging. Some and I know I've heard it so many times that dogs don't enjoy that kind of unsolicited attention.
Right.
But the dogs that do come up to you like Batman and do look for it and put their paws on you and put their head on you, and that should still be.
I'm going to look at the dog.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good question. If a dog comes up to me and offers to get in my lap, I may choose. I still might not hug it. It depends on the dog, but the dog solicited that attention.
Right.
One thing and again, if it's your pet dog, this is a totally different conversation,
Right.
okay? But this is something I see a lot in shelter dogs, where the dogs that I work with that have recently been adopted, they're conflicted. They really want that attention. They
Right.
want you to pet them, they want you to be with them, but all of a sudden you do something and you don't even know you did it, and the dog bites or freaks out. So that's again why so many people are bitten, and a lot of the shelter dogs that I work with, they are seriously conflicted because they want attention, but they have learned that attention is not good.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I'm playing with shelter dogs, the first few times they solicit attention into my lap, I won't allow it. I mean, it's not like I push them away. I use the treats to get them away from me because I want the dog to first know that there is an exit and he can take that exit should he choose.
Okay.
Again, a lot of this is your instinct, and the more you work with dogs, the easier it is to make those kind of decisions based on things like that. But you just have to watch the dog's body language. And if all of a sudden I see a dog, so if they pylo-erect, their hair goes up, they can't help that. They're not being aggressive, or they're trying to look big, or they're scared. So you see something like that, if the dog is in your lap and all of a sudden he yawns or shakes or lip licks, I would just hey puppy, and he'd throw a treat somewhere else. But that's a very good distinction. It's different if the dog comes up to you and solicits attention, but you still have to be aware, especially of dogs you don't know, that they could get here and you could move. I see a lot of people who are bitten when they move their hands because these dogs have been taught that hand movements may not lead to something good, or if you raise your voice. This is why, again, when you hear dogs constantly barking in the kennel, it is hard not to say, shut up, my God, you're on my last nerve, because we are human, okay? But you also have to realize that those dogs have probably been yelled at a lot, which is why when I'm working with dogs, I want whoever my backup person is to practice happy voice, because if you try to stop a dog fight, or you try to stop a dog from having a poor interaction with a human, if you raise your voice, chances are very good you are tipping that dog into that behavior. Because he's going to read that as a threat, he's going to read that as something bad is about to happen, and he is going to escalate instead of de-escalate. So that was an awesome question. Other questions?
Well, I was going to add on to that. I mean, recently we've had 2 dogs in the adoption court. The second you let them out, they're just...
So what were they doing as soon as they were
They jump up and put their arms around anybody they can.
So that's attention seeking, okay? And that can lead to humping. It can lead to scratching of your arms, which people are not going to want. So that's different. That's an attention seeking behavior versus the dog soliciting attention because he wants to be hugged. He's trying to get you to do something, or he's learned that this behavior got him something. So that, and I'm going to talk about that in the second part, about some of the attention seeking and the behaviors that dogs do in the kennels. So don't let me forget that one. Other questions?
We do have one really bad humping. It's actually a female.
Okay, we may bring that dog out.
Yeah, that is actually a really good idea. If you're talking about Cassidy.
Yeah.
Other questions? Come on, I talked a really long time. And one thing you should know about me, especially because I'm a Karen Pryor certified trainer, we are taught, I'm never going to tell you your question was stupid, because there are no stupid questions. I tend to try to treat people the same way. I'm not going to be mean to people anymore than I'm going to be mean to the dogs, so let me know if you have any questions. Yes?
Well, we have a couple dogs that when we take them out, they will not walk or they want to bite the rope. And even when you go to try to get them out of the kennel, you just can't get them to
Right.
stop.
So she's talking about dogs that when you get them out, they're overstimulating. So I'm going to talk about that in the kennel handling part as well.
Yeah, we have one or a few that pepperoni
Yeah.
is crazy.
Well, it seems like we will not have a shortage of dogs to look at. So does it make sense about the kennel body language? Any other questions about going? Yes.
So sometimes dogs do make eye contact while the rest of their body language looks kind of fearful. Not fearful, like submissive. So is that because they've been taught people like that?
So,
Or it's not, they're not threatening?
Dogs will make a little bit of eye contact. They want to know where you are, for sure. So if the dog has learned that you could be dangerous, he is not going to take his eyes off of you. So if I have a dog that's staring at me and very submissive, those are the dogs I do not like to work with because they have learned to hard stare at me and make conflict gestures. Those are the dogs I for sure toss treats away from me. Conversely, I also want to point out to those of you who have pet dogs, your pet dog loves to make direct eye contact with you. They do. It's very validating. Okay? We're talking about dogs that don't live with you or dogs that may have had a bad association. And again, there's not one thing. If you see a dog yawning or a dog lip licking, this is the problem with this talk, is then everybody goes out and goes, oh my God, did you see, well, that's that. It's a big picture, okay? It's not a little picture. So look at the whole dog and try to make decisions based on the entire dog versus one part of the dog. Because again, they're not cookie cutters. So we can say that most dogs don't like direct eye contact or most dogs don't want to be petted on the head. Does that mean every dog is that way? Absolutely not. So it's just important to look, and that's an awesome question. Look at the entire picture. Don't just look at one part of the picture. Yes?
What about those rare dogs that aren't necessarily food motivated or are so fixated on the situation at hand that tossing treats away isn't going to distract them?
I'm glad you said that because I meant to talk about that and I forgot. So what about those dogs that don't eat? Okay? First thing I'm going to ask you is what are you using? If you're using chicken or hot dogs and the dog still won't eat, that dog is too stressed for you to work with. There is not. So when dogs are ready for fight or flight mode, they're not going to eat because they do not want to digest food at that time because they need to fight or fly. So they can't digest food, so they're not going to eat. The number one stress indicator of a dog is its ability to eat something that you know it really wants to eat. So which is why when I'm working with these dogs, I am never giving them a milk-bone dog biscuit ever. Although you do again find a rare dog who would prefer the milk-bone dog biscuit over chicken. So I'm not going to throw it out of my toolbox, but I'm almost always using meat when I'm working with dogs in the kennels because A, chances are good they will really want it. The stinkier the meat, the better. If I have a dog that isn't looking, then I have gone, like when I work with really fearful dogs, I go with tripe a lot. So yes, that's disgusting. But I'm seriously one of those people, I stick my hand into the can of tripe and throw it at the dog. Make little, tripe is the stomach contents of a cow. It's very stinky and it's very good. And if I'm throwing tripe balls at a dog and it won't eat, I can't work with that dog in terms of feed training him. Can I work with him and sit on a chair outside his kennel and read a book for half an hour and not make direct eye contact with him? Absolutely. And then he may start to go, that person is just ignoring me. They don't want to do anything with me. Maybe I'll unfreeze a little bit and step closer to them. Or then I'm just going to have food all over the kennel and I'm going to watch that dog and see if he starts to eat. But if the dog will not eat and you have got the best you've got steak tartare, and that dog is not eating, and he doesn't have a medical reason that he's not eating, like broken teeth or something. He's most likely too stressed. So you have to find another thing to do with that dog. So generally those are the dogs. So my dog Bandit, for any of you who are Facebook friends, my shy and fearful Bandit, had him 6 years now. Never been out of my house in the 6 years I've had him. He's housebroken, he runs in and out. You can't pet him. He will lay on the couch and he will look at you. If you make direct eye contact for too long, he won't, and he will not take treats from you if he perceives you are trying to do something with him. If you throw treats to him, 1 or 2, he'll take them, but if you try to play a game with him where you try to get him to move around the room or come closer to you, 6 years, still haven't got him to do anything. He's a very shut down dog, okay? But he lives well in my house because he's housebroken. He's great with the cats and the other dogs, and he just wants to sleep on the couch or the bed. So, but sometimes you're gonna have a dog that the food is not gonna work with. So we have to look at why is the food not working? So that's the short answer. Why is the food not working? Is it not good enough? Is the dog too stressed? If the dog is too stressed, what can I do to interact with that dog? So I really like sitting and reading. I love it that cell phones have books. You can download your books. I will get a chair. I mean, your kennels, like if you can get the dog outside and it's a beautiful day, I would sit out in an outdoor run and I would read a book for half an hour and I would watch that dog. And if he made any attempts to eat my food, I would toss some more out without doing anything. But I would probably keep a leash on him so that when it's time to go back in, you don't have to corner him again. But that's a really good question that I had forgotten to address, so thank you. Did that answer it? Okay. Other questions? All right, so if everybody wants to take a break, I'm going to get Skywalker and bring him in for a few minutes. I'm going to let him go to the bathroom first. If he's in here, I'm very sorry. He's got a bad trainer.
That's why we have a mom. Nobody ever pees.
I know, and he will definitely be in here. So, he does not want to be petted on top of the head, okay? And I'm just gonna bring him in and I'm gonna let, if he comes up to you, you are welcome to give him treats. But what I want you to do is write down on a piece of paper things that you see him doing that you think could be stress gestures. They're not gonna be right, it's not gonna be a test. I'm not gonna make you read your answers, but I will ask if you want to share your answers. Does that make sense? Okay. So everybody take like a 5-minute break, and if someone will let me back trapped along with his puppies. I just saw Jerry out there. Jerry Collins was the person who caught him and his siblings and his mama. So his mama was a black German Shepherd, his father is unknown, but he does look just like a Dutch Shepherd. Pretty.
You're very handsome, buddy.
Spot him, yeah. Well, apparently, yeah, we're making sure it's not behaving.
I'm starting to think that we're gonna have to have you come to our house.
Hi, sir.
Does anybody need pen and paper?
I think the biggest problem I
Anybody
have
else?
when we try to have people over with our anxious dogs, getting the people, please stop looking at the dog.
Yeah, I have to talk to people all of the time. This guy, Frida, come walk around. Go say hello.
That is going to be taped, and I'm thinking I need to show it to my husband.
So especially for those of you who can't see, watch Skywalker's back legs. So watch how hyperextended he gets coming up to some people. He's like got that whole, okay, I'm gonna be ready to run just in case you end up scaring me. So I'm going to keep my legs very extended.
Right, you know what I mean? It's like,
And we're all like, we want to do the right thing. We don't want to go, hi.
And you can see what will happen. I mean, he won't freak out. So if anybody wants to, try doing something else with him.
Like that.
It's like, nope. Hi, what are you doing?
Come on,
Yeah. So that's kind of for him. I happen to know that that's a stretch gesture. He doesn't know what else to do. So he's going to come up and see if I am going to save him in some way. So I also am ignoring that behavior. Nobody in here is going to kill him. So he's just figuring out what's safe and what isn't safe. His Spot, I love Spot. Every time I nose punch Spot, I always get a cookie. Yes, you do, don't you? Really? Oh, yes. Oh, you're very frustrated. Yes. Yeah, so he's like looking at everywhere but the people. Good job. Want to walk around the room? Go. You can go by yourself. There you go. Oh, yeah. Run here. Here. Come on. Look here. Whoa. Anybody got hot dogs? All right. Oh, that was good. What is that one? Oh, liver's a winner. Liver is good. Oh, those are huge liver chunks. Yeah. Skywalker's now living with this person right here. Okay, she has giant chunks of liver. Nope. Whatever you have. He's like, okay, hello, new best friend.
They break a little.
He says, I like you. Okay, Sky, that is a lot of liver.
That is a lot of
Come on,
liver. We
buddy.
don't want to upset tummy.
Yep, well, we gotta get our liver. Oh, Sky. Oh, what a
Oh, every
bad
other dog we've ever tested has peed all over that, so.
Yes,
That's what
all
we
the
smell
doggies pee there.
Yeah.
Get your liver and go. Good job. Oh,
Years ago.
good job. Skyster, sit. Yes. So, if you have a dog, this is kind of like if they won't eat. If you have a dog that you now know the behavior, and your dog suddenly won't do, and again, this may not be as applicable in the shelter setting, but it is a good way to know how stressed your dog is. If your dog has behaviors that he knows, like sit or down or come or touch, and he doesn't do those behaviors, he is not being stubborn, he is stressed, or you have not actually trained him to the point where you think he's trained, one or the other. But a lot of times it's just because the dog is too stressed to do the behavior, and he's thinking about other things. Good job. So now some people are getting chin scratches in the front row. So in the beginning, Sky was like very standoffish and going, okay, I don't know if I want you to pet me or not. But I actually taught him to hand target people's palms because he is a little skittish of people and he does a lot of public access work. I didn't want him to spend his whole life being terrified. Sky, you're gonna pee on that, aren't you? Yes, you are. Come on, buddy.
No longer interested in it. It's fine. Spit them out.
Good job. Go around.
He's like, yeah, I had a right. The next dog that comes in is going to be really excited about it.
So he actually does enjoy being scratched into the chin. He actually prefers that sometimes versus a treat. Isn't that whatever you got? I don't want that. Don't like it. So there was a stress yawn. So that's just like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Oh, somebody opened the door back there. Oh, good job. Somebody else opened the door. So his tail is coming up. His tail is down. His tail is still down versus normal, which you wouldn't know if you didn't know him. But his tail is down a really long way when he first came in. So again, it's not much time, but he's getting more and more comfortable with what people are doing to him. So, does anyone want to say some of the things they saw in his body language?
His ears, you can watch with his ears especially. When people start to come forward a little too much, it's a lot more of the
Yep.
backing.
He definitely is an ear talker. He'll put his ears way back, and his tail as well. Other things people notice. Yeah, his tail is down a lot. I can tell you that normally his tail is out more. So his tail right now is very straight down between his legs. So again, does this mean I wouldn't work with him? Absolutely not, because he is not avoiding any of you. He could go back here like he did a couple of times. He is choosing to come back and interact with me, but he's also going back out and soliciting attention from various people. So these are the things you want to look at. So now you have to also start to look at things like this. If you're in a room with a dog, why is he going back there? Is there food back there? Is he trying to avoid me? There may not be one answer, so you have to start to think of what some of the answers might be. Because I want to eat the alligator.
Well, I mean, the smells in this room are probably
Right.
overwhelming.
Right, and the smells in this room are going to be overwhelming. So now he's like checking out purses, because I might have accidentally taught him to steal things. Purses. Remember the credit cards, buddy. We want cash, okay? So he also does this circling thing, okay? He's coming up, he's making his rounds, and then he's like going, okay, maybe I'm just gonna go get that biscuit. Nope. I'm gonna go back out here, still don't care about any of that food, but I'm going to circle back through. So that's what you want to see when you're working with a dog, to know if you want to still keep working with him or not. Yes, he's showing stress behaviors, but just because he shows stress behaviors doesn't necessarily mean we don't want to work with him. It's going to depend on him. If he got under this table and didn't come out, I'm done. I'm not working with him anymore. I might read to him, or I might just sit still and not do anything. But one thing I always like, especially in the volunteering world, is instead of trying to get everybody out, sometimes it might be better to work on a dog and give that dog what it needs for the day. Again, it's hard because we do want to get all the dogs out, but sometimes some of the dogs need more than 5 minutes to warm up to you, and they'll get a lot more of behavior exposure and good experience with people if they can get more than just a few minutes of time with you. So it's hard to have a balance sometimes, but think about that, because you want the dogs to be able to have also some kind of quality time with people versus just going for a potty walk and going back in. So sometimes if you want to just sit and read for half an hour to a dog, I think that that's better. A lot of dogs, the ASPCA has studies out that dogs like that quiet time, and that's how they're going to live in a house. It's not going to be this chaotic. So giving them some quiet place to chill out while you ignore them and read a book is actually very good for a lot of dogs. Good job, Sky! Any other behaviors that anybody saw Sky doing, or something that you see and you want to know about?
Well, the yawning and panting.
Yeah, so he's yawning.
He does the yawning more when people are touching him,
Yeah.
or if they're looking and talking.
So was he a
Yeah.
little nervous when we came in the room, or was it just I didn't quite know?
No, this is him with people he doesn't know on the first few minutes that he gets to know them. So even though we got him and his litter mates right at 2.5 months, socialization window was closing. So that's why, even though I fostered all 6 of the puppies, all of them are still pretty much like Skywalker. We just missed a very important socialization period, and luckily we got them enough at the end of the socialization period, which is why I went ahead and fostered all of them, because I wanted to make sure that they got a lot of, I had kids come over and people and stuff like that. But you want to know that too, that's why one of the reasons I use him is because we can mess dogs up if we don't give them the proper socialization we need. Did you decide to take Spot's biscuit? Yes, I don't ever let you have bad sticky biscuits, do I? No. I make you eat liver. Sit. But very nice. Thank you for working. Good job. All right, yes, sorry.
So, did you say that 4 months and younger is really
So she's, if you can't hear her, so when is socialization? Unfortunately, we can't ask dogs, and they keep changing the answer all the time. But if you want to have a dog, especially a dog that you want to do search and rescue with, or a dog that you want to be a leader dog for the blind or something like that, you definitely want to have them at least by 2 months, and you want to know that the owners of the puppies were doing puppy games with them, exposing them to novel stimuli and things like that. By 4 months, socialization is starting to close. And what that means is, we talk about socialization a lot. So yes, it's much better for everything if the dog is well socialized prior to 3 to 4 months of age. But depending on the dog, Skyster, yes, you are going to be over there. Thank you. We can still go and work with things. Like, it was 6 months of hard work before I could get him to approach a stranger. So I just really had to work. I trained him to touch an outstretched hand, and then started having him meet more and more people with outstretched hands. I realized that in search and rescue work, he's not going to ever work out as a live find dog, because he's going to get up to the person and go, I found you, now I gotta go. Sorry. So he's a human remains detection dog, because they don't care so much about whether he's worried about them. So I worked with that. So the more exposure puppies can have, that's good, but socialization can also be bad. So the wrong socialization is just as damaging can be just as damaging as no socialization. And so what that even means is, prior to about 3 to 4 months of age, in the wild, the mother dog would have been around a lot, and the mother dog would have said, this stuffed dog is dangerous. Don't ever go near the stuffed dog. And so the puppies are going to grow up going, that stuffed dog is dangerous. My mom told me I don't need to make a decision. Stuffed dogs are dangerous. Mom starts to leave, going along more and more. Puppies are exploring a little way around where their living area is. Puppy comes across a porcupine. Mama dog's not there to say yes or no. So the dog starts to change and go, okay, everything I've never met before is dangerous until proven otherwise. So that's kind of what socialization means. So when we get dogs that haven't been well socialized, they do tend to be more fearful globally, because they're now going, okay, no one ever taught me that these things weren't dangerous, so I now have to assume that they are dangerous. So he just thinks that people touching him on top of the head is kind of scary. I mean, these dogs were living under a deck. They had to be dragged. The 2 of the puppies, I think they had to use the catch pole to get them out of the foundations and stuff. So that's what that means. Does that answer your question? All right. Other questions on Sky before I put him back? All right, good job, buddy. You did a good job of showing that, yes, that you can be braver. Oh, sorry, yeah. Whoa. Nope, still sorry, dude. But he's like, you know. Yep. But see, look, he didn't eat his treats, but he totally allowed him to scratch him under the chin.
Yeah, he was enjoying the chest scratch.
So there's a lot of studies out now that some dogs actually will take human contact more than food. You have to know the dog, and it just depends on what the dog is trying to say to you. Yeah. So, and again, so now what's he saying? He's eating more of the treats. He's relaxing. So now if you wanted to work with this dog and teach him something in the kennel, now's when you would start to work with him. Again, we are so competitive. I'm going to train this dog for 10 minutes. I get the dog out. I have 10 minutes to train him to do something. Clock starts now. He would not, you couldn't do anything with him in 10 minutes. It's that 10-minute mark that he's starting to relax enough that you could train him to do something for you. So that's just important information to think about when you're working with a dog, especially if you're trying to change a dog's behavior. We cannot change his behavior if we don't have anything to work with. If he's just too stressed to pay attention to what we are doing. Okay, Spencer, time to go back. Yeah, I know it's not fair, Spot gets to stay. If you would just sit quietly and not pee on things, you could stay, but you won't. In another 20 minutes, he would be actually jumping on all of you and jumping on me and wanting to work and yelling and screaming, and you would never want to hire me to be your dog trainer because you'd go, oh my God, this guy. Let's go, boy.
I got one.
All right, so now I want to talk about common kennel problems that you are having with the dogs, getting them in and out. So, whatever reason the dog is here, hopefully going towards the adoption floor, maybe going into a rescue, whatever the outcome for the dog, we want to try to make the dog's stay as pleasant as possible in the circumstances that you have to work with. So, will you ever be able to do everything that you want to do? Absolutely not. But there's lots of things that we can do. The number one problem with trying to do behavior modification, and what I mean is changing the dog's behavior, obviously that's what that means, but just in case. So we're actively trying to get the dog to not jump up and grab people with his forepaws. That's behavior modification. The reason it is so difficult in the shelter system is every single one of you who touches the dog needs to do things the same way. So dogs have a really hard time generalizing. Humans are very good at generalizing. So we have 4 or 5 different kinds of chairs in here. If I taught you all how to sit in one chair, just the black plastic chairs, and then I asked you to come and sit down, you would generalize that anything that looked like the black plastic chair was a chair, and sitting down in that would be the same. Dogs don't do that. To most dogs, unless they have generalized a behavior, these are all different chairs. This is why people say all the time a dog is stubborn. Oh, he knows sit, but. So it's not that he's stubborn. He has not generalized the cue to the situation where you wanted him to do it. Had I asked Skywalker to sit the very first time he came in here and saw you all, chances are very good he would not have offered that behavior. Not because he's stubborn, but because this was too much for him to process also thinking of the word sit. So, we have to be consistent, and we have to understand basic rules of learning theory. So, let's pretend you're all afraid of spiders. I like spiders, but I know a lot of people are afraid of spiders. Are you freaked out by people getting into your personal space? I don't really have a spider. All right, so I'm going to use her because you're looking at the mirror. You see her body language? God, she's like,
I'm afraid of spiders.
all right, so imagine this hand has a giant hairy tarantula. I come right up into your face and I say, what's 2 + 2? If you are so afraid of that spider that you're going, there's a giant hairy tarantula in my face, I'm going to die. You can't tell me the answer to something you already know, right? So how can I teach you something new? You can't even answer a question that's easy that you already know. So we have to take the stress first to a level where the dog can perceive that we are actually doing something with him, which is why you have those dogs that are so stressed they can't eat. There's not much you can do with them except ignore them, try to give them more space, if at all possible, and let them warm up a little bit more, or try different food sources and things like that. So, the first thing we have to know is, all of you who come to this class need to be ambassadors and go forth to the other volunteers and staff and people and help them understand how to properly work with the dogs. Try not to be human and go, you're doing that wrong. Connie said not to do it that way. Try to get them to watch you do something and get them to understand why everybody needs to be on the same page. Again, is that going to happen in a shelter this big? No, but as long as we mostly try to do it the same way, you're going to start to see differences in dogs. If you have a dog, like the dog that he's talking about, that is grabbing everybody as soon as it comes out of a kennel, that's a dog that you may have to decide only certain people get to take that dog out. Again, is the dog not getting as many potty breaks? Yes. Are we going to get that dog to a place where he can be adopted more quickly? Yes. Which one do we want? We want him adopted, right? Yes, he might be more comfortable with more potty breaks and we feel better knowing that we got him those, but I don't care. I want that dog out the door. I want him adopted. I do not want him spending all of his time here because he has behaviors that are stopping him from being adopted if we are causing the behaviors that are stopping him from being adopted. So a lot of the issues you have were not caused by you. They're caused by wherever this dog came from. Dogs have a lot of attention-seeking gestures because what do? We give the dog attention. Negative attention is still attention. The number one thing my clients want me to do is say, I want to teach my dog the word no. Good. What do you mean by that? I mean, no, what does that mean? No forever? No right now? Do you have kids? How did that work out for you? Teaching the dog no. So I always think about this. If you put a plate of cookies on the table and tell the 3-year-old not to eat the cookie while you leave the room, what's the 3-year-old going to do if those cookies just came out of the oven and the 3-year-old really wants a cookie? So when we expect our dog to somehow know to leave the cookies, because the 3-year-old can't, but somehow the dog can understand no. So the first thing I want you to try to let go of is the word no. The dog has already heard it 30,000 times before he came here, and it didn't help him, did it? He's here probably because somebody was trying to use the word no to change a behavior, and they got frustrated with the dog. So try to let go of telling the dog negative things because you are not changing his behavior. Dogs live in a world of safe versus unsafe, not right versus wrong. So if Spot is in the trash and I am in the kitchen, Spot, bad dog, get out of the trash, you bad dog. My body language is big. I'm using my big girl voice. I'm moving over Spot. I made the kitchen trash unsafe, okay? I go to the bathroom. The pork chop bone is in the kitchen trash and Spot's going, obviously you didn't want that. You didn't take it with you, did you? Any self-respecting dog would have taken the pork chop bone with him. They would not have left it in the trash. So Spot gets in the trash, throws it everywhere, gets the pork chop bone. You come back from the bathroom and you're angry at Spot because you told him no, didn't you? So that's not how Spot looked at that interaction, okay? Spot doesn't know why you're angry with him. You left the trash. So when a dog jumps up on us and we yell no, get off, the dog may momentarily do that behavior because we have scared it or we've startled it into doing the behavior. So we're rewarded. We got the dog to momentarily get off from us. That's very rewarding for us. So we will keep doing that behavior because it rewarded us. We're not training the dog not to jump on people. We are only helping ourselves for 5 minutes. So if I have a dog that's attention seeking, I have to take away the dog's reason for seeking attention. Almost all jumping up behaviors are attention seeking. So what do? No, off, get down. If you push a dog right here, you just invited him to play. So your dog is like, hello. Every time you come to my kennel, I get out and I jump on you and you go, no, bad dog. And you push me. I love it when you talk to me. Will you come back and talk to me tomorrow? I'm very bored here. This is a very small room. I don't have anything to do. But when I get out of my kennel, I'm so excited. Hello, I love you. I'm going to jump on you and you're going to push me off and you're going to talk to me. Every time you come to my kennel, it works. This is the best game. I love this game. Thank you for learning it for me. I will play it with everyone who comes to my kennel. Because it will work. Thank you. This is fun. And then we have a dog that's like scratching our arms with his two claws, and he's getting overstimulated, and he's helping us. And the people who come to look at him go, dear God, I don't want that in my house. And they don't realize that almost always a week after in the home, those behaviors go away. The problem with these behaviors is they're stopping dogs from getting adopted here. They rarely translate into the home situation very often. So how do we get the dog to not do this? For this dog, you're going to have to wear really thick clothing, probably. I'm going to have probably my Carhartt coat on. And I'm going to just stand there and ignore that dog raking me with his boot claws. I'm not going to look at him. If he's a big dog, I'm going to brace my legs so he can't push me over. And I'm going to look away from him. Now, if I need to get him out quickly, maybe I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'm going to take hot dogs, and before that dog comes out of the kennel and can jump on me, I'm going to drop those hot dogs on the floor right at my feet. So now I gave the dog an alternative behavior that is not jumping on me. So if everyone did that, what's the dog going to do when somebody comes to his kennel front? He's going to go, hey. And the person who wants to take him out is going to go, oh, nice dog. I like this dog. He's easy to get out. But it's going to get you to that point where hopefully we can get him out without him overstimulating. Otherwise, I would prefer to do the stand and be a tree thing outdoors and not in the kennel, because there's so much going on out there that it is amping the dog up. But if I have to, I'm going to do what I can to ignore that behavior. And I'm doing this because it's kind of a cutout gesture and it keeps my arms safe. And I'm turning my head away from the dog because this is a cutout gesture. I don't see you. And because I don't see you, you should back away from me. What do we do the first time the dog jumps up on us and gets off? What do you do? Good boy! What did you just train the dog to do? Jump up on you, get off, and listen to you say good boy. You just trained a behavior chain. That is an awesome thing. Dogs love behavior chains. The problem is that's not the behavior chain we wanted, right? So you have to be really careful to not reward the dog for instantly stopping the behavior you didn't want him to do. We do it all the time. Dog jumps up. Good boy for getting off. Dog gets up on the couch. Good dog for getting off the couch. Good dog for getting off the counter. So the dog learns, if I want you to say good dog, I will do this behavior, so you will have to say good dog to me. So I want to say good dog before the dog has had a chance to launch at me. Good dog. Well, there's still, even if there's only 4 toenails still on the floor, I want to try to reward that dog. If he finally gets off of me, I'm going to wait 15 to 20 seconds, or I'm going to take one step side to side. If he's still on the floor, then we have a party. Good dog. Now you're a good dog. I put the reset button in. I put enough time so that I'm not rewarding the dog for jumping on me and getting off of me, okay? But if to get the dog outside, you're going to do everything you can using treats. A lot of these dogs are going to be too overstimulated to get the treats. So I'm going to strong arm the dog probably away from me. If I have to, I'm going to keep the leash. I'm going to step on the leash just to get my bearings of the dog. If I have a dog that won't get off of me, I'm going to try to step on the leash a little bit, because whatever I do, I want to be safe. And that's the big thing for you guys as well. Whatever you do, ultimately, you need to be safe. So I like to keep dogs out here. If they're jumping on me, I don't want to choke them out, but I can brace my arm and keep the dog's leash really short. May I have a leash? 35 leashes. Oh, I like this one. It's pink. All right, so I can control Spot much better if my hand is here. Sorry, Spot. If my hand is here versus if my hand is here. Spot has a lot of room if my hand is here. If I need to get him outside and not have him jump on me, it is much better if Spot is over here. If you can't do this, you may be taking out the wrong dog. So pick a smaller dog, because you need to be able to stop the dog from jumping on you. But start to reward the dog. Ignore as much bad behavior as you can, or give the dog an alternative behavior that is incompatible with a behavior you don't want. Again, if this was an owned dog, the answer is to teach the dog to sit. That's an incompatible behavior with jumping up. So if I ask my dog to sit before he jumps up, he will learn that when he comes up to me, he should sit before he jumps up on me. Not going to work so much in the shelter setting, although there are dogs that are going to know sit. So always try that. But the big thing is I want to get out enough space so I can ignore this behavior without getting trapped and without having the dog overstimulated. A lot of dogs start to do this, okay? They're mouthing you, and they're not doing this because they are bad dogs, okay? They're doing this almost exclusively. You're going to find out these are the adolescent pity dogs. A lot of them are going to be adolescent dogs and a lot of adolescent pity dogs. Not because they're bad dogs, although unfortunately it is a rough to euthanasia because they do often end up inadvertently biting someone. But they're bored. You come out and man, they are just bored out of their minds. So one thing to do is teach these dogs games that you can play in a kennel. 40% of a dog's brain is only for his sense of smell. They have a special organ called the Jacobson's organ in their nose that separates scent, different scents. So if the dog is running a trail, he can say rabbit, deer, whatever, all at the same time, whereas we would smell them individually. If you could smell a tablespoon of sugar in 1 cup of water, you could put that tablespoon of sugar into Olympic swimming pools of water, and the dog could smell the tablespoon of sugar, okay? That's the difference. 40% of the dog's brain is only for his sense of smell. What does he have to do here with his sense of smell? Oh my God, can you imagine what it must smell like here to be the dog? And you should have seen Skywalker's tail go up the minute we exited this building. I mean, for him, this has got to smell like death. It smells like stress. All the dogs who have expressed their anal glands, every dog that is throwing fear pheromones, he comes in here and he's like, I don't know what happened to the last dog that came in this room, but it was scary, and now I'm scared as well. As soon as he got outside, he's like, back to the car. We have got to get out of here. So we have to think about what their sense of smell is doing here in the kennels. I don't know what kind of plans you could have, but I can tell you there's some easy volunteer things that you can do. You can build something called an enrichment cart. You have to, I'm sure, get buy-in from someone somewhere. But what if you had a cart and when the dog, if someone has the dog outside walking, or the kennel's being cleaned and the dog is outside of the kennel, someone takes lavender or vanilla and spritzes one corner of the kennel. Or they hide a treat or a toy under the correnda bed or under a blanket. So when the dog comes back to his kennel, he smells something. He smells something novel. He's going to go, hey, it smells like vanilla. He doesn't know what vanilla is. It smells good over here. I'm going to go investigate that scent. Or look, there's a treat under my blanket. If I use my nose, I can find the treat under the blanket. So giving dogs back their sense of smell makes them have to use their brain. Using their brain is going to stop a lot of stress behaviors that we see in kennel dogs. So if you have a dog that's getting hyper mouthy, you have a dog that is super bored. Like, he is freaking bored out of his mind, and he is playing the only game that's working for him at this point, which is grab your arm and shake it. Take that dog out. Get some, like, I like to use flower pots, the clay flower pots with a hole. Get some flower pots. Put a really stinky piece of treat under one flower pot and play the shell game. See if the dog first understands there's a treat under a pot. Some dogs are going to go, I don't know. Can you just move that pot for me? Because I don't know what it's doing here. But if you see a dog that goes, hey, there's a treat under that pot, you start to move those pots around and see if the dog will find which pot has the treat under it. You only have to play these games for 5 or 6 minutes for a lot of dogs, and they're like, tired and they're happy because they're using their nose and they're using their brains for things that are natural for them to do. So any kind of a scent related game that you can play with the dog is going to be good for that dog. And those are fun games and they're easy games, but anything you can do that's going to help the dog bring back his sense of smell. I like to let them smell things. I also know that we need things that are cheap. Cardboard could be your best friend. At the Humane Society of Indianapolis, one of the biggest things we do is ask people to bring in cardboard, like paper towel tubes, toilet paper tubes, empty cardboard boxes. Make sure that you have the sign off of the vet or medical staff, but most of the time cardboard is easy because it's so soluble, so even if the dog does eat a little piece of cardboard, it's not going to die. You could take a paper towel tube, take the dog to an outdoor run, put some treats in the paper towel tube, close the end of the treats, and see if the dog shreds the paper towel tube to get to the treat. He's disemboweling a rabbit. How much fun is that if you're a dog? That's really fun. He's going to rip apart that cardboard, and you gave him something natural to do. He had to use his brain to get the cardboard to get to the treat. If you have a dog that loves that game, you're going to get a cereal box, and you're going to put the cardboard tube inside the cereal box, and the dog has to go through the cereal box to get the paper towel tube to get the treats. So now I have a very cheap thing, and I have a way to keep my dog busy. You can play a version of what's called nose work. Nose work is becoming very popular in kennels right now. So you're going to take some cardboard boxes, and you're going to put a hot dog, couple pieces of hot dog in one box. You're going to throw the boxes in a room. You're going to let the dog go into the room and hunt for the box that has the hot dog. So he's using his nose, and you're using things that are not expensive to get in a shelter setting. These games work best in a room. So obviously they're not going to work in the kennels. You can certainly spritz scents in kennels or hide treats in the kennel for the dog to find when he comes back into his kennel. But these other kind of games, you need a space that is quiet where the dog can play the game. So think about things like that, because for these hyper mouthy dogs especially, getting them out and getting them thinking is going to get them out the door, where generally their behaviors are going to go away after a couple of weeks in the home setting. So attention-seeking gestures we're going to ignore as much as we can. But also just know that once that dog starts getting hyper-mouthy, you have a dog that's teetering on super kennel stress and a serious boredom issue. And we have to address the boredom part of why he's getting stressed. Dogs that pull you. So I know when I talked to Michelle before that most of you know how to make a harness out of your leashes. Does everybody know how to make a harness out of your leash? Anybody who doesn't know how to make a harness? Okay. Sorry. Oh, here's my leash. It's still here. You're going to put the leash on the dog, and it needs to be probably maybe a little bit longer than this, especially if I have a Dalmatian. I'm going to take the leash under the tummy. I'm going to hook it under this right here, and now it's called a Weiss Walkie because Emily Weiss actually sells a leash that does this, but you can pay $30 and buy a Weiss Walkie, or you can make one of your own. I'm sure Emily doesn't mind. So now I have control of the dog's body. If he pulls too hard, he's going to get just light pressure right here. Most dogs stop pulling. The reason so many dogs pull is the neck pressure. So it's opposition reflex. The dog goes, something's choking me, I must pull against it. Humans are going to go, hey, something's choking me. Don't pull against that. The dog is going, something's choking me, pull even harder to get away from it. So she has the actual more of the Weiss Walkie because it's got the
Harness lead.
yeah, harness lead because it's already got the slip knot that goes through it. But you can also make one out of any leash. But anything you can do that's going to take the pressure off the dog's neck, because if you've got a dog dragging you down the hall, obviously this neck pressure is not doing you any good, is it? No, the dog's just choking himself out or damaging his trachea, his esophagus, or whatever, and he's dragging us down the road. It's because of the leash pressure. So or the neck pressure. So the first thing you can do is if you can just get rid of some of this neck pressure. So I know for a lot of dogs, and I don't know if it would work here, but some kennels will do, some dogs only go out on an easy walk harness that hooks here on the chest. So if the dog pulls, he has to walk sideways, he can still pull, but we just took a lot of the pressure off of our arm, and a lot of dogs stop pulling once they get that pressure off of their neck. So for dogs that are dragging you, who's going to adopt the dog that drags them to the kennel, right? So people are going to go, oh, I don't want to adopt a dog that pulls me, because we want the dog to get out to the kennel as fast as possible so he can play, right? So we're going to let him drag us. But how's that going to look for the person who wants to adopt him? So if you can stop the dog from dragging you to the kennel, the outdoor play areas, that is going to help that dog get adopted. So you can do that. This is when you can also really get those high value treats out. So if I have a dog that's not so stressed out that he can't eat, I'm going to show him a treat right in front of his nose, and as I take a step forward, I'm going to drop the treat on the ground. I take one step, show the dog a treat, drop it on the ground. Now the dog is following a line of treats all the way out to the kennel, and he is not pulling me, and he's learning how to heel or walk very politely on a leash. So use your treats to get the dog somewhere. You can also play stop and go, but you have to be consistent. And again, if half of you are letting the dogs drag you out to the kennel, and the other half of you are playing stop and go, all you're doing is making some dogs very confused. But in stop and go, if the dog pulls, you stop. So the reward is forward movement. And what the dog learns is, if I pull, we stop. And you're a tree. You're not like jerking the dog back or talking to him. I'm an oak tree. I am not moving. Dog doesn't pull, I walk forward. I might have walked a quarter of an inch before he pulled again. I'm going to stop again. It might take me 6 hours to get to the outdoor run. But if I'm consistent, and if I did that every day, the dog is going to learn not to drag me out to the kennel. But again, if 20% or 30% of the people are allowing a behavior, the dog is just going to learn. I get paid either way. I can either get a cookie when I go out to the kennel, or I can get reinforced by dragging you and having fun. So for training and behavior modification purposes, that's the biggest thing that volunteers have to think about and staff have to think about is, how do we get everybody on the same page? So a lot of times putting a sign on the dog's kennel saying, this is the behavior modification that we're working on with this dog. If he's pulling you, please use treats. Use at least walking to get the dog, or use the harness to get the dog out to the kennel, something like that. So jumping up, so what about the dog to the whole mouthy thing? That's the worst one because it hurts, especially as now it's like almost summer out, we're wearing t-shirts, and the dog is putting holes in your arm, or he's scratching your arm. And again, he's not doing this because he's a bad dog. This is a fun game. He's grabbing you and shaking you, and you are squeaking like a bunny rabbit, going, ah, the dog, and you're hopping around, and the dog is like, whoa, I never had a squeaky toy this good. You are an amazing squeaky toy. So that's the dog that I'm going to try to teach behaviors to as rapidly as possible. That's the most bored dog. I'm going to teach him sit, I'm going to teach him down, I'm going to teach him that 4 paws on the floor means treats rain from heaven. Anything I can do to reinforce the behavior I want. So whenever you're working with behavior modification, the big thing to think about is we want to reinforce the behaviors we want and ignore the behaviors we don't want. We tend to be reactive, not proactive. We tend to only see a dog if it is doing something that bothers us, and we react to that bad behavior. So when the dog is doing things that does not bother us, we tend to think, oh, thank God, the dog is not bothering me. But we don't reward the dog for that better behavior. So start to look at things like that. So throw out some things that are the most horrendous things to work with. Yes.
Barrier aggression.
Barrier aggression. walking the dog by another dog, or the dog is lunging and barking in the cage, or both. Okay, so sadly in a shelter setting, you have to change the shelter, okay? You have to put barriers so those dogs can't see each other. Those dogs stare right across the aisle at that other dog, and they're making direct eye contact, and they have nowhere to go, and they're bored, and they're barking, and he's barking, and I'm barking, and you're barking, and all we have to do is bark at each other all day. Plus, I'm a fight or flight animal, and I don't know those other dogs, so I gotta bark at them to make them go away from me. So, for a lot of barrier aggression, it is especially difficult to work to help in a kennel setting because the kennel is making the behavior happen. And at night when you go home, the dog is practicing the behavior. So if I need to fix a behavior, it is very hard to fix the behavior if the dog practices the behavior when I am not around to fix the behavior. But that being said, we can certainly do what we can. So this is when I'm probably, if I have a super reactive dog, and I apologize if I keep coughing, my allergies are really bad because it won't freeze out. So that's when I'm gonna have my can of tripe or a can of really stinky dog food, and I'm gonna have that right in front of my dog's nose, and as I lead him out the kennel, I'm going to be rewarding him by letting him lick out of the can of food instead of reacting to that dog. If I have two dogs that have an issue, I might see if I can move them. That's always a really good option if we can see two dogs that are having. I just went to a kennel and they had two female dogs that were trying to kill each other anytime they walked by, and they'd house the puppy of one of the dogs between them. So these two female dogs had a 4-month-old puppy that belonged to one of the other females between them, and this was not going well. So we moved the puppy and we changed their behavior. So sometimes moving two barrier aggressive dogs will fix it. Sometimes I'm gonna have somebody standing with me. A lot of these are two-person jobs. So if one person is throwing hot dogs down the row of kennels as the other person is walking the dogs through the kennels, then the dog's just going to start to go, hey, hot dogs rain from the sky every time a dog walks by my kennel. No hot dogs rain from the sky when no dogs walk by my kennel. Therefore, I want dogs to walk by my kennel because hot dogs rain from the sky. But you have to be consistent, and we have to get the other dogs to understand what. So the dogs rotate through, right? They will learn from each other. So if you keep a lot of the dogs doing the behavior, they are going to start to listen and notice that the other dogs are eating something at the back of the kennel. So when I'm working with barrier reactivity, I'm going to throw the treats back as much as I can in the small space that the kennel has, because I want the dog looking away from the kennel gates, and I want the dog walking by having his nose stuck in the most stinky thing that you can possibly find that he can eat. If we could only find a way to make cat poop okay for people to handle, our problems would be solved in the shelter setting. So I'm still working on that. If anybody wants to think about how I can take cat poop and make it palatable for humans to handle, it's the #1 dog training treat out there. So we have to find something that the dog will want to focus on. And again, if the dog is not sticking his head in that can of tripe, he is overstimulated. The only way to fix that is to increase your distance. You can't increase the distance in these kennels. You just have to go out as fast as possible, but not react. So generally what you don't want to do is say, come on buddy, come on, stop barking, come on, because all your dog hears is you barking with him, and you getting more and more stressed out, which he then thinks is caused by all these other barking dogs. So if I have a dog and I can't do anything else, I am walking him out as quickly as possible, and I am doing my best to not react, and I am also keeping him right here. So many people are letting the dog sniff through the kennel gates. This is not good. So keep your dog, I know that, there's not much room, but there's enough room. I have walked dogs through this kennel. You can keep them in the middle of the kennel, okay? So the big thing is just to keep them as close to you as possible, use as much food as possible, but the other dogs need to be trained as well. Does anybody know what click for quiet is? Has anyone ever heard click for quiet? So it's a thing that clicker trainers do. You go through the shelter, if a dog is quiet, you click and you give him a treat. You don't need clickers to play click for quiet. So imagine if you all, everybody who's here in this room right now, you all had really high value treats. We went into this kennel right over there, and we just started walking up and down the kennel, and we would notice any dog that was taking a breath, or any dog that was not barking, and we would throw a treat. If the dog is barking, we're not making eye contact, we're moving on. We go down the row, we start over, we come back. In about 5 repetitions, your kennel is going to be really quiet, because the dogs are starting to learn, if I bark, you pass me by and I don't get a cookie. If I'm quiet, I get a cookie. And the dogs will start to see each other and go, hey, that dog is getting a cookie, he's not barking. Now I have calm behavior, what could I do with that? I could start to reward only dogs that are sitting at their kennel front. I could start to reward dogs that don't have their forepaws on the kennel gate. So once I have calm behavior, I can now start to train the dogs to do all kinds of fun things that will make the people who walk into the kennel go, oh, look at that one. He's smart. That's the other thing the IACC found out. People pick dogs because they think they're smart, okay? Any dog can learn to sit at a kennel front, or any dog can learn to be quiet at the kennel front for food. The people who are dog, they don't have to know how we got the dog to do it. They just have to think that the dog is really smart, and that the dog wants them to take it home because they have a bond with it already. So the more you can do to reinforce calm kennel behavior, the faster these dogs will get out here, and the less problem we're going to have with these hyper-mouthy dogs. Yes? I cannot hear you. Sorry.
So what
Barrier
happens when you get the
aggression.
barrier aggression out in the outdoor runs?
So same thing. What happens when you get that barrier aggression out in the outdoor runs? Again, that's a fun game. You get to run up and down and bark at the other dog, and he gets to bark back at you. So first, you have to have the dog on the leash. I like long lines for these big outdoor runs, because I want the dog to have like 20 or 30 feet. But I need to be able to physically keep him from getting so close to the fence that he can no longer hear me. If he is lunging and barking at the fence, he can't hear you. There is nothing you can do at that point. You have lost the game. If you can keep the dog far enough away from the fence that he still knows you exist and that you're carrying something he really wants, then I can train the dog that that behavior is not as rewarding as this behavior. But again, so often not you guys, because you guys are here, so that makes me think that you are very stellar volunteers, but I know that you are. But other volunteers might just let the dogs go out and then ignore them while they're in those kennels. Those dogs that don't have anything else to do but run up and down the fence and bark at the dog next door. So you can be active, reward the dog, play with it, get treats, throw them out in the grass. I love hunting games. So I'm going to throw treats out to the grass and let the dog hunt for those treats. And I'm going to keep them away from the fence. Some caveats. There are obviously dogs that resource guard. You may or may not know what dogs are resource guarding. Try really hard not to reach down and pick up the treats near the dog's mouth unless you know the dog really well, okay? It's rude. Resource guarding is considered a normal dog behavior. Sadly, humans want to live with an abnormal dog behavior. If dogs did not resource guard, they would have died out long ago. Resource guarding is natural. Dogs are supposed to do it. So, we don't want to be bit. You just have to use common sense. Some of these dogs may resource guard more than others. So again, you're going to watch the dog's body language, but when I'm using food, especially if I'm using food close to another dog, watch the dog, because that's when you're most likely going to see a resource guarding issue. So, yes.
Would the outdoor barrier aggression, if it is just off the charts and obviously you've already lost, they're barking and going wild, is the best option at that point to move the dog?
Yes, so if you've already lost, the dog is barking, I'm gonna move the dog. This is why I hope he still has a leash on. Redirection is a common problem when most people and dogs are bitten. What that means is the dog is so over aroused that all of a sudden something touches him and he doesn't know what it is, but he reacts. Most owners are bitten in cases of redirection. Their dog got so overstimulated by something, the owner puts their hand on the dog's collar, the dog goes, oh my God, what touched me? I have to kill it without knowing what it is. So they also bite their, like two dogs living in a house, one may redirect at the window a lot, or at the door, the dogs get way overstimulated. If the dog is so hyper-focused on this fence that he's hackling and he's got his teeth out and he is barking, this is not a dog that I would recommend going up and shoving him away from the fence. So hopefully you still have your leash on, or the dog on the other side of the fence has his leash on. Somebody needs to move away from the fence, but do not put your hand in there or clap your hands or yell at the dog, because chances are very good that the dog is suddenly going to see you there and he's not going to be thinking. He's in fight or flight, man, and it is fight, okay? Because flight is not possible. I'm going to have to kill you before you kill me. So that was a good question. Other dogs. Yes. So the dog with the leash in his mouth, right? What's the dog doing? It's playing tug. What's the best dog game ever invented? Tug. So now I've got a dog that's tugging, because what am I doing? I'm trying to get the leash back out of his mouth and I'm tugging. And so the dog is like, hey, when we go on a walk, I pull, you pull. I pull, you pull. I pull, you pull. Pull harder, okay? I'm gonna pull harder. You pull harder. This is fun. I like this game. I'm gonna bite your hand now because I'm way overstimulated. And this is really a fun game, okay? So, what if you had two leashes? Every time the dog grabs one leash, you drop it and you have the other leash. It's going to take you some time, but the dog is going to figure out that you are no longer playing tug and he is walking forward. Or, this is my favorite thing, again, I'm very cheap and especially shelters don't have much money. Do you know what a dog won't chew on? A piece of rolling PVC pipe. If you get a piece of PVC pipe this long and you put it over the end of your leash, he is going to be biting a piece of rolling PVC pipe. And he's like, this is not fun. I can't tug this. It just rolls. I don't like the way it feels in my mouth. So I stopped the tugging. So in those pieces of PVC pipe, you can just put them right over the leash. If you have a dog that has been hit by someone, obviously, anything I tell you, please use just common sense, okay? For there are going to be some dogs that a piece of PVC pipe is going to look like a stick or something that somebody hit me with. But I love PVC pipe for stopping dogs from playing tug, or I like the two leash thing, or I'm going to be so rapidly dropping treats down as I walk that the dog is focused on that and not my leash. Or, again, it's going to depend on your shelter protocols. I'm going to have a toy in that dog's mouth. I'm going to have that toy on another leash, and I'm going to be putting gentle pressure on that toy so the dog now wants to tug on the toy and not on my leash. So I still have a tugging behavior, but hopefully not as bad, and I'm able to walk the dog and he has something else in his mouth. Or a lot of dogs they just want something in their mouth. So you put a toy or a stick in their mouth. Again, if I have a resource guarder, you have to use common sense. But any of those, the PVC pipe is easy, two leashes, easy. Giving the dog other treats as you go along can be easy, it depends on the dog. So, but anything you can do to not play tug. Because if you just stop and be a tree, generally the dog just overstimulates and then starts biting your arm. Yes.
So, in situations like this before, the dog is outside, and he's been outside because he's just running around out there. You go to put the leash back on him, and it doesn't go around the neck, it always ends up in the mouth, and yeah.
So that's when you're gonna try the treats. Throw treats on the ground, and as the dog goes to eat them, you slip the leash on. Have a second leash with you. Again, if the dogs aren't wearing collars, the second leash thing is a lot harder. Because I usually like to have a collar and then the leash on the collar and then the harness around the dog's neck. So we don't have that. It's harder to do the 2 leash thing, but I'm sure that you guys can think of ways to work around that. But also throwing something into the dog's mouth before the leash. Or does the dog want to go back in, or does he want to play? So play training games with him. If he thinks that every time you come back to the kennel front, he should sit or be calm, you are going to be able to leash him. So now if it's an own dog, you walk away from the dog and you just say, too bad you're not going on a walk. Harder to do if we're trying to rotate dogs in and out fast.
Yeah, and I had one dog that it wasn't even, he wanted to tug on it. He wanted to chew on my leash. So I
Chewing
even
is
just
fun.
dropped it and he ran away with it and
So again, when we see these behaviors, these are hyper-stressed dogs. So I'm fascinated by neurology. And a man named Ken McCourt. If any of you are really fascinated by canine cognition and how dogs think, Ken McCourt has 3 or 4 seminars this year up at Wolf Park. And you get to play with the wolves as well, which is an added bonus for any of his seminars. But one of the things that they found out by doing brain scans is when a dog has toilet paper in his mouth, it's the same part of his brain that lights up as when he has a bird or a rabbit in his mouth. This is something he has to do. It makes him feel good, and he doesn't have any other way to make himself feel good. So he's doing this. So we have to find a way to give the dog something else to do. That's a dog that's mentally becoming unbalanced. So we have to do whatever we can to get him to think again. He needs more mental stimulation. He needs more brain games. He needs more puzzle games to figure out. Yes.
So, well, a couple things. One of the things with treats is the rock, for a lot of these is the rocks, right? And so when you throw a treat, they kind of fall between the rocks.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little bit harder, I think, to give the treats like we're talking about.
So dogs a lot of times will find the treat in the rocks. It depends on the treat. Yeah. So, but what do we usually do if we throw a treat and the dog doesn't see it? We show it to the dog. How smart are these dogs? You gave the dog no incentive to think. I never show a dog if he missed a treat. Too bad for you, buddy, you missed it. If we all do that, then the dog is going to go, I have a nose. I forgot about that. It's pretty big, too. Takes up a lot of my brain. I need to think. We enable dogs all of the time by giving them the answer. Going, hey, I dropped a treat over there. Look, buddy. Look, there's a treat right here. And the dog is going, hi, you're talking to me again. I like it when you talk to me. This is fun. Why are you looking at that rock? I like that rock too, but I don't know why you're looking at that rock. Should I go look at that? I don't want to look at that rock. I want you to talk to me. So, if a dog misses so then the dog is like, I love you people. Training you was so easy. You have to tell the other dogs how to make this game work.
Okay, so then there was one that we talked about the leash, and I used, they had a rope in there to get it, and I dropped the leash, threw the rope, the rope on the play. The only thing I felt bad about is I'm going, okay, it's another rope, although it is a short rope and a toy, and he did take it, and I was able to get the leash out because he had it in his mouth.
Right.
I was able
Perfect.
to get on it. But is that okay?
Yeah.
Using, okay. Because I was
So-
thinking it's another rope. It's kind of.
And remember, we're not doing things, one of the things when I first started animal welfare that I found to be true, the more you know about training, that sometimes the harder it is to work with the dogs, these are not owned dogs. So what I would tell somebody to do if this dog lived in their home are going to be different than what I would tell someone to do here. We sometimes get stuck. Like I see people at shelters all the time trying to make the dog sit at the door. Really? Just let the dog go outside, okay? This is not the place, unless you're working on something and it's a protocol that you want. But just because you make your own dog sit at the door, don't get stuck trying to make some of these dogs do those kind of behaviors, okay? Before I take another question, I also want to make sure we're all on the same page about this. For one thing, I'm going to tell you that when you're writing up reports, and I don't know if you do reports for the dogs, like if you tell people in the shelter staff if you have a problem, I do not like the word aggression. What does it mean? So I have actually gone to court over a dog. So a dog in a shelter setting, the shelter was sued after the dog bit someone after it had been adopted. I had to go give a deposition. The worst 3 hours of my life. I was in tears by the time this person got done asking me. But what did he say? Well, what does that mean? What aggression? That meant, you know the dog is dangerous then, right? If you use the word aggression only means the dog is dangerous. It's not what that's not what it meant in that case, and the person shouldn't have used the word aggression, but now it's in the dog's file, and I have to defend it. When I'm writing behavior reports for dogs, I do not use words that can be misinterpreted. I describe. What did the dog do? Did he head whip? Did he hackle? Did he show his teeth? What did the dog do? Versus using words that multiple people can interpret. Because if I ask every one of you what aggression looks like in a dog, you are all going to have different answers, okay? And a lot of times when I meet with people and they say, oh, he's got this horrible aggressive behavior, and I'm like, this is not, like, really? The dogs are just bumping, I mean, that's not, So people have, that's the word every client I have says about their dog. And generally, if your dog is what I would call aggressive, he's going to kill you. And you don't own him because you're not really going to own a dog that's going to kill you, okay? So you probably don't have an aggressive dog. So I don't like words that can be misinterpreted, and I don't like words that will give a person a negative association based on that dog. If that dog has a negative association, he's going to be euthanized, okay? We don't need people making their own assumptions about a dog that we are going to put out on the adoption floor. That's my opinion. But so I like to be careful with words, especially if you're in a public area and people can overhear you use those words. Am I going to adopt a dog that I see you say, oh God, he's got such a bad aggressive behavior? Barrier aggression. Yep. Barrier reactivity. Reactivity is such a nice word. It's like, who wants that? Here's reactive. I'm reactive. I'm crabby. I have a headache. I get reactive. So I can understand reactivity, okay? Doesn't mean I'm going to go kill someone. So think about what words you use to describe the dogs to each other and what words you use that people can overhear you say, and especially what words you write down that are going to go into a dog's file. So I can tell you, if you ever do, especially staff members, if you ever do find yourself in a lawsuit and you have to explain what a head whip is and what it means, and did that mean that we adopted out an aggressive dog, there's lots of stuff that you want to make sure that you can defend. So when I think about I'm writing up a behavior report, can I defend it? Will I stand behind it if I have somebody on the other side of the podium asking me what I meant when I adopted out that dog, or I allowed the public to have that dog? So that's my word thing. Be careful of your words and what they mean. Describe. Someone can come in and I can make up a behavior plan for a dog. But if you come up to me and you go, the dog's aggressive, I need help. I got nothing. I don't even know where to tell you to start. So I need to know, what did it look like? Exactly what did it look like? The other thing I want to talk about is the word alpha. So, how many of you can describe that? Does that mean the same thing to all of you? No. It is the word like aggression. So people, I hear it all the time. Oh, he's just trying to be the alpha dog. He's jump on me. He's trying to be the alpha dog. For those of you who like to do research, write down the name Alan Mink, M-E-N-C-K. Look at him on YouTube and find out every video where he begs people to stop saying the word that he invented. He's the person that coined the words alpha in terms of wolves and dog behavior. Like the man who invented the Labradoodle, he wishes it had never happened, okay? The guy who did the Labradoodle has been on numerous talk shows saying it's the worst thing he ever did. Say Alan Mink wishes that we had never gotten hold of the word alpha because we are not using it correctly. Dogs are not wolves, okay? If any of you have a chance to go to Wolf Park, even if you can't go to any of the seminars there, you can go for the day or a tour. It is an amazing place to find out about canine behavior. What you're going to learn is that dogs are not wolves. Your dog knows he's not a wolf. And wolves do not have a pack leader, hardly ever, in the wild. In the wild, dogs live in family units. You have a mother wolf, a father wolf, puppies, and the family unit teaches the puppies to grow. In a situation like Wolf Park, where you have multiple unrelated wolves, the wolves will form what's called a hierarchy, where one wolf will say, okay, the food is mine, I get to eat first. We consider that to be the alpha wolf, and when we see the alpha wolf do things, we assume that he is making the other wolves do things because he's the alpha. So we need to be the alpha to make our dogs do what we want. So, if I'm the alpha wolf and Spot has gotten my bone, I have a choice to make. Do I want that bone or do I want Spot to have it? Just because I'm the alpha doesn't mean I'm not going to let Spot have that bone. I might not want that bone today. Spot can have the bone. I'm going to walk away. What if I decide, you know what? I like that bone. I'm going to walk up to Spot. I'm going to go. I'm going to hackle. I'm going to look at him. And I'm going to use my teeth. And Spot's going to go, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you wanted that bone today. I'm going to get very low and I may roll over and submit and show you my tummy. What didn't happen was, go! Alpha roll the dog! I'm gonna wait. That's what we do when we force dogs into an alpha roll. We forced it. In the wild, force does not happen. If Spot did not want to share that bone with me, he had every right to fight me. In a hierarchy, fights can happen if one wolf or dog decides that means more to him and he is ready to fight. But the alpha does not force this dog to submit. Never. That dog chose to submit or it chose to fight. So I have a big bite on my arm from a mastiff that was resource guarding food, and the trainer said to alpha roll the dog every time the owner came up to the food bowl. I don't even know how you alpha roll a 150-pound dog. But they did, and guess what? The dog now bites the owner anytime the owner walks near the dog. Why? That was rude, okay? The dog's like, okay, you're out of control. I don't want to live here anymore because you are unpredictable and you are not living in a social situation that I understand. You do not, people tell me all the time, my neighbor said, all I have to do is bite his ear and he'll learn not to bite me. People do that, seriously. Do you want to bite a dog's ear? That is, no. Yeah, or, hey, you know what? He'll learn not to bite you if you grab his snout and shake it, because that's what his mother dog would have done, right? She would have grabbed his snout and shaken it. Maybe, but her reaction time is so much faster than your reaction time that by the time you go to shake that dog's snout, you are punishing him for something else entirely. We actually, when I worked at Indy Humane, we euthanized a 7-month-old puppy that had been adopted out at 2 months old, whose vet told him to snout shake the puppy every time he bit the children. The dog ended up launching himself at every child he saw. Okay? Why? Because this is rude, and it's not what we think it means. Okay? Dogs need clear-cut rules. Hierarchical societies work because there are rules. Dominance only happens over a resource. You can be a resource to your own dog because you bring it the food, you give it a place to sleep, you are important to your dog. So some dogs will guard their owners, they'll guard sleeping spots, they'll guard mates. They are not taking over the world. They don't have opposable thumbs and they can't drive. So until that happens, they're not being dominant to you because they walk through the door, or because they jumped on the bed, or because they're walking in front of you on a walk, okay? None of those things is dominance. It takes a resource. And dominance is fluid. So when Condor was still alive, I had 4 dogs. Batman was the top dog if there was a bone. He would take all 4 bones, and he would lay on all of them, and he would just look at the other dogs, and they would go, I'll let him have my bone again. Yep, okay, Batman's got all the bones, and they would walk away. If there was a tennis ball, Condor had all the tennis balls, and he would not let any other dog have the tennis balls. So there was not one top dog, okay? It depended on what the dogs were perceiving as a resource. And we just have to remember that when we do things and we think we're doing it because that's how the dog did it or the wolf did it, dogs and wolves split so long ago that they don't live the same way. Dogs in Mexico, where we study wild dogs, and the wild dogs of Russia, they live very solitary lives generally. They don't live in packs so much, and they're total scavengers. They come together for mating. They will come together for some social interaction, but their social interaction is fluid. They are not living in a pack where somebody is telling them what to do all of the time, and they make decisions based on give and take. So when you see a dog and you're working on with a dog, and the dog rolls over and shows you its tummy, how many of you go, oh look, he wants a belly rub? No, probably not. He's like, here's my tummy. This is the softest place, the easiest place to kill me. I mean you no harm. You can kill me. That's how much you are scaring me right now. I just want you to know, here's my tummy. Please give me some space. I mean you no harm. Now, there are dogs that want belly rubs, and those dogs look completely different. A dog that rolls over and has his tail tucked into his tummy and his ears are down and he's not looking at you. So many people go, oh look, he wants a belly rub. And the dog is, why? Why are you wanting to kill me? I just said I give up, and now you're trying to kill me. So again, bites to the face. Because we've just bent over to pet a dog that is clearly saying, I need you to move away from me right now. So slight digression, but I wanted to go throw that in because I don't want you to get stuck making decisions based on flawed and outdated information. Yes?
We'll have a dog that we can't bring to the vet. We go out to the outdoor grounds and we're trying to pick up food or whatever, and he's wanting to give the dog positive attention. But then you're trying to clean up after him before he leaves again, and it won't get now, and we're not using that.
So I would probably take it in and clean up the poop later because, again, you have to decide, is anything you're doing more rewarding than not doing anything? So if the dog is getting all kinds of reward by mouthing you now while you're trying to do something else, or I get someone else to hold the dog and I clean up the poop. So sometimes you have to think of them, so sometimes it can't be training because in this situation, you don't have anywhere to go. So you have to then think of a management tool. Is there a way to manage the situation? And again, if we all know who the dogs are and we have signs or there's some way to communicate, then if somebody takes that dog out, then hopefully the next time they take it out, somebody will say, hey, 2 people need to go with this dog. Because somebody needs to be doing something with it while someone else is picking up the food. Or we look at seeing, will chicken work? Will canned dog food thrown around the enclosure work? Will anything else work to keep the dog from bothering? So a lot of times I don't give up on anything until I have tried meat and high value meat. So a lot of the commercial dog treats that we use are easy to use, but they're not that exciting. I like meat. Dogs like meat. I mean, not if you're a vegetarian, but dogs are not vegetarians. So think about that. But in your case, you may have to think of management versus training. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's what I normally do, things like that. Normally the leash concerns is to leash definition and break because otherwise he wants to like bite back in the back. And it's playful with the dog.
Right. So that's a dog that's starting to get more and more frustrated.
Small dog, big dog.
Right. So again, we have to think, okay, is there anything that we can do for that dog in this current setup? And maybe the answer is no. So sometimes you actually have to think, maybe the answer is no. I don't have a place where I can work with a dog. That's a dog that needs to get out into foster care. That's a dog that needs more mental stimulation. So sadly in the sheltering system, the answer is sometimes that there is no answer in terms. So also, I want people to start to think, because again, this can be very stressful. Mental anguish, in my opinion, is just as bad as a serious physical ailment in a dog. If I have a dog that is so stressed out that he is kennel smearing, he's pooping and rolling in it, he's spinning in his kennel, he's hyper arousing every time someone touches him and biting at them, is that fair to that dog to let him live in that kind of situation? So I want to see, can I get the dog somewhere? Can I get him out of here? Can he get to rescue? Can he get to a foster? Or is this a dog that we need to have another conversation about because we cannot help him in what we have? And believe me, I've worked in lots of shelters now. This is a really nice city shelter. I mean, it's got a lot of things that a lot of shelters don't have. But again, it's not best friends out in Utah where every dog has a 2-acre enclosure and lots of enrichment toys, okay? So sometimes we have to think about what's best for the dog in the scope of where we're working with a dog. That is sad. What else can we talk about? Let's talk about something happy. Puppies! We like some more with puppies. Little shark teeth. I love puppy teeth. Hey, Connie. What about humping? Humping. Good question.
We have one very specific dog.
All right, we may have to go get this dog. So humping has nothing to do with dominance, okay? Mostly it's not sexual. I think there are 5, and I can never remember all of them though, but there are 4 or 5 different humping reasons. Humping is play. Dogs hump each other a lot. Like if Skywalker's playing with another dog that's also an adolescent, they take turns humping each other. They just have fun doing it. It doesn't last very long, and it's a play gesture. I want to hump you, you want to hump me, now we're going to chase each other, oh, I want to hump you again. That's fine. But if I have a dog that is grabbing a hold of my leg and humping, okay, we're on camera. Dogs will hump for gratification reasons. So male dogs especially will get something out of humping, even if they are neutered. So we have that aspect. It feels good, okay? It's boredom related. I hump, or it's attention seeking. I hump you, and you are going to interact with me, okay? So if I have the gratification or the attention seeking, I am going to try to redirect the dog if I can before it humps me by keeping the leash far away from me. That's a dog I'm going to give a lot more mental stimulation to. Or I'm going to choose to let the dog hump me until it stops. And because I just stand there, it's disgusting sometimes. We freak out about humping far more than a dog being humped generally freaks out about being humped. Now, the attention-seeking humping where the dog won't stop, that's a boredom, stress, I need interaction behavior. So I have to fix that globally versus fixing that one thing. There is a reason that that dog is humping. Why is the dog humping? I have to fix that reason to make the dog not hump. So if it's attention seeking, then or I have an adolescent, an altered male, I'm gonna start to think about all of those things, give the dog a pillow, something like that. But if it's attention seeking humping, I am going to ignore that as much as I can, unless the dog is raking me with his dew claws, or unless ignoring the humping forces the dog to escalate. So a lot of times, if the humping goes on, some dogs will become more and more insistent because they have learned all they have to do is try harder. That's a dog, I'm gonna walk away. I'm gonna ask someone to hold the leash. I'm gonna do everything to get my leg back out of that dog's embrace, and I'm taking my attention away from that dog. If he humps, and I know he'll hump every time I approach him, I'm gonna back tie him, and I'm gonna work on tossing him treats before I walk up to him to get him to a point where I can approach him without the humping, but I need him back tied because I can't let him practice this behavior while I try to fix the behavior. So again, we have to know, it's like attention, it's like barking or jumping. Why is it happening? What's the dog getting out of it? And how do I stop the dog from finding reward in that behavior? Yes?
Now, is it the same thing when it's a female?
Yeah. Females hump too, yeah.
Yeah.
So females will hump especially in play a lot. A lot of underconfident dogs hump as well because they don't know what else to do and they're like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just gonna hump you and I'm gonna hope it works out okay. And then the other dog goes, why are you humping my head? No. I mean, otherwise we know it's not sexual because they hump, like they hump heads, I mean, it's all sides, I mean, it's just, actually, and anybody who wants it, my cards will be up here. I have a really good handout on humping and why dogs hump and the different ways to help stop humping. But we have to know what's causing it. It's not, so there's an underlying reason the dog is humping, and we have to fix the underlying reason to stop the dog from humping. Yes?
On the dog, I think they're taking out Cassidy, Tara's not here.
I was gonna ask
Tara,
that, yeah.
Tara took our Cassidy around the house on several long runs and trails. And Cassidy, and then to me, other firefighters, she's a firefighter. Cassidy did not hump one single
That's what I was
time.
gonna ask.
The first time, I don't think she humped even when she came back into the shelter. The second time, same, like, we talked many hours of running. Tara's an awesome shaker. So when she brought Cassidy back, she hadn't humped the whole time. She gets her back into the shelter and she tries to hump.
So again, that's a stress behavior,
Right.
okay?
She's back here.
She's back here. This is stressful, and I twirl my hair, okay? Like I'll twirl it when I'm bored, but sometimes I'm gonna twirl it when I'm stressed as well. This is what I do. The more stressed I'm getting or the more bored I'm getting, the more I'm gonna twirl my hair. That's kind of what I think of those stereotypic behaviors where the dog is spinning, or he's humping, or he's doing something. It's this, like, I don't have anything else to do, okay? I don't have anything else to do. This is it for me. So, this works. So I'm gonna do it. It makes me feel good.
So if we have dogs that we know are obviously, and it's usually the ones that have been here a while that started to exhibit that. So if we have dogs that are doing a lot of the humping behavior, should we probably, instead of worrying about concentrating on training them to not hump, we should probably worry more about
Why?
taking them for a run,
Right.
taking them for a long
Or
walk,
giving them stimulation. So, again, in a shelter setting, it's awesome if you have someone who can take a dog for a long run, but typically I would play more mental stimulation games, hiding the treats, putting the treats, giving the dogs things to smell,
Yeah.
anything like that. Be careful of exercise, especially for your athletic dog. You can train an athletic dog to be a marathon runner, okay? So many of my clients go, I went running with him, and now I come back and we've been running for miles and miles, and he comes back and he humps me and he jumps on me and he's wild. Yes, because now he's in really good shape, okay? So the more you run with a dog to try to take the dog to tire the dog out, you may actually just be creating a dog that is in really good shape and can then do nuisance behaviors for even longer. So sometimes when I have nuisance behaviors and people think the answer is exercise, I want to know if that's really the answer. How much exercise is the dog already getting? Is that enough? Does the dog really need more exercise? Or is the dog bored out of his mind? So we want to, but for that, if it works, but again, it's working because the dog is off the shelter. So the dog is stressed probably just because it's back in the shelter. I mean, this is stressful. I'm surprised more. I mean, I actually think that dogs are amazing that as many of them make it out of the shelter as they do. Okay, unless you're billionaires and we can build something totally amazing like they have out in Utah at Best Friends. And dogs are very resilient. So that's the good thing about dogs. Other behavior issues. Who wants to see a dog? Go get this dog. I want to see this
You might have
dog.
to use your leash.
Yeah, go for it.
Forgot mine today.
Slap him. So tell me about this dog.
He's been here a long time.
Since August? Okay. So what are her issues?
She humps you so bad she gives you.
So she's humping, she humps people,
Get your claws into you.
but you said she's bruising people with her humping?
Oh yeah. She like got her claws into me like.
Okay. That's pretty, okay. So what else? She pulls, she humps. Anything else?
She's a good dog. She's a good dog.
Yeah.
She likes rolling in the snow. I don't know if you're a good day
You ever find it, she's like, hey, I can't hump you if I'm looking. So when does she usually hump? Right when you get her out of the
I
kennel?
had trouble getting after she went to the bathroom, bring her back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
that's
of them
good.
is when you're going back in.
Yeah. Field trip? Want to go? Shall we go outside?
Sure we can, sure.
I mean, again, this is kind of like taking your dog or your car to the mechanic and trying to explain to them what that noise is because it won't do it at
Yes,
the
yes,
mechanic.
exactly what it is.
So, again, I don't want to force this dog to do a behavior, but maybe if we could see the behavior, it will help me figure out what it is.
A volunteer walker out.
All right, so, all right, here you go.
Here we go.
Let's all go out. Well, everybody, where will we be going? So everybody else go outside first, and maybe be on the other side of the fence. Can we do that? So,
We can open your lawn.
can they watch from the outside here without it being?
Oh, okay. Like in the parking lot.
Yeah, okay.
The lock, we can all get out into the parking lot.
Just so that, because it's not going to look. There's not going to be this many people out there.
You got this so tight on you.
I did not say that. I would never. Good job.
I was looking for you, Lori, to ask.
She's like, why are y'all staring at me?
Yeah, she did. It was just the only one, but it was just really good. Because I was going to use it as well. She went through it.
So I'm trying to give her a reward if she backs up for me. So that way she's not getting overstimulated right in my personal space. Good girl. I'm also giving her the reward back farther. So I'm just making her think, how can she get my food? So she has to move a toe back, she has to look away from me. Good girl! Yeah! Look how smart you are. You see her backing up? That's very smart. Yeah, girl, look at me, kiddo. Good girl. There you go. So she's probably one that she's real. So when you have a dog that gets a game pretty quickly, you know it's a really smart dog, okay? Shelters are much worse on the smarter dogs than the dogs that maybe not be the brightest little dogs out there. So she just needs somebody to come out here, probably, and play some games with her that make her figure out how to do something. So this is an easy game. Teaching the dog that the only way to get the treat is to back away from me. It's an easy game for dogs to get. And when the dog stops playing the game, don't go back and try to force the dog to come back with me either. This is stressful. I'm asking the dog to do a lot. She's going to get a drink of water. So we'll see if she humps when she goes back in.
Preston is another one that Katie has the white and black, and he will probably exhibit everything
Like that?
Alright. He's rescued on the road.
So, can this dog go to a different one? Is there another one open?
She's going to poop. Alright, good girl. Little loose poop.
Poor kiddo. There you go. So, can this dog come in with black and white?
Here, go hand me the poo. I'll throw it away.
She's doing it. There she goes. Connie. Connie.
Oh, sorry.
Well, if she's associating properly with going back in. She didn't even get her one. She just threw the treatment, put it in front of her nose and then threw it. And she went around and around.
boy. Look, all those people are staring at you. If you're a put
Good boy.
Come on. Good job. Let's go. Sit. Go. Sit. Yes. That's really nice. Oh, you did. You lost. You lost. Good job. Oh, what a good behavior! Thank you. Hey, come on, let's go. Let's try to avoid the poop. Come on. Let's go.
I think he wants to poop.
Are you thinking about it? Because I don't know, you're playing a weird game with me. I don't think I like it. I just want to jump on people. So she said that when you first get him in and out, he's wild and crazy. So that's when you have a couple of choices. 2 leashes, get him out as fast as possible so he can at least dump some of this adrenaline, or see if he'll take the treats down low and walk with you. Like right now he's not eating anymore either. He's also not jumping on me. I think so this is fun, he's sniffing. This can also be a very big sign of stress, this obsessive sniffing. It depends on the dog. It's one of those stress behaviors they do if they just can't stop sniffing. Good job, buddy! Sit. Sit. Good boy. So I'm also asking him to sit before he can jump on me. Are you getting over a wild pony? So just same thing, try to reward him before he jumps on you. And put the reward either under his chin, down like that, or on the ground. Before he jumps. Ignore jumping. So I also, for him, want the treats underneath his mouth and down low, because we need to reward him where we want him to be. Does that make sense? So that was good. Do we have another one we want to look at? Sandra has Goofy. So maybe just let him drag the lead for a minute. So see, it does make dogs nervous when everyone stares at them. So the dogs are all like, I don't know. I'm just gonna sniff and pretend that I don't know what's going on out here. go back and eggs? You look a mess. You look a mess. So Eve's finding the hot dogs. Good boy! Yes, there are more out here. Look at Bonanza. Let's go! Good job. Oh, hello. Alright, I'm just going to try taking this one back in and see what it does, since that seems to be the issues with most of them. And then we can just go back.
Yeah, not that I'm aware. It wasn't last week. None of it. But he's one that's normally extra goofy when you go to get him. I just threw a bunch of treats in there. He's probably going to be fine.
Maybe just let him dry the leaves for a minute. So see, it does make dogs nervous when everyone stares at them. So the dogs are all like, I don't know. I'm just gonna sniff and pretend that I don't know what's going on out here. What's wrong with your back leg? You look a mess. You look a mess. So Eve's finding the hot dogs. Come on! Yes, there are more out here. Look at Bonanza. Let's go! Alright, I'm just going to try taking this one back in and see what it does, since that seems to be the issues with most of them. And then we can just go back.
Yeah, not that I'm aware. It wasn't last week. But he's one that's normally extra goofy when you go to get him. Hi, Ringo. Sometimes he wanders and acts like he's in
Sunday and they fix my other one. Exercise.
Yeah, and then you don't have to take them for
Yeah. And then what she needs to do.
And I love the fact that you
Consistency is really sweet.
well, yeah.
Hey, Emily, are they going to use that room again?
No.
Okay. There's a lot of public
it depends.
Last I heard, he was still doing well.
Well, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And he would pump the heck out of any emails. I don't care. It was like dancing with the star trying to get in. I mean, I'm not making that up. And I had the biggest bruise in like, you know, on my leg. He did that to every female volunteer, or like small Michelle that does temp testing or whatever. But then you'd get Jarrell, who was adoption counselor and volunteer, and he wouldn't do any of that stuff with him. I mean, at all.
Either was a learned behavior with women, or his reasons for humping might have been slightly different from another dog's reasons for humping. So again, sometimes knowing why the dog humps is not as I mean, it's important, but how you work with the behavior is almost always the same. So we want to know why. Why did the dog do it? Why is he doing that? We may never understand why, but how you work with the dog is always going to be the same. So redirecting, finding so the dog is overstimulating. Give him something else to do. Back tie him so that you can walk out of his range and toss him treats for appropriate behavior. So it's just good to know, because then only women should play this game with him. The men don't need to play. So when I know a trigger, it's just easier, because then I just work with a trigger. But why is he just doing it to women? I don't know.
Well, I was just curious because it just seemed really strange that all the women
Right.
and one guy that was taken out, he had absolutely no
Right. So maybe either a man scared him more at some point in his life, so he's subduing a behavior. Women proved to be more fun to hump, so he's just going to hump women. Or there's a reason we will never know, and it won't matter because we need to fix it. So I like to always know why, and it's kind of fun to know why sometimes. But it's like my clients whose dogs bite. There's all kinds of reasons why they might have bitten you, but we're gonna fix the bite in the same ways, not depending on. So I know the dogs didn't exhibit the behaviors that we hope to see. It's very common. Dogs, the longer you work in some place, the more of a routine you get into, and dogs will read that routine, versus someone going in, making very clear rules from the beginning. I just made clear rules that said, okay, this is the game I'm playing, and you can play my game, or you don't play my game. Or it's just that everybody was staring at them, or it's a combination. But keeping the treats down, but just good handling skills, okay? If you don't want the dog jumping on you, the treats need to be down, under the dog's head. If you want the dog, I'm going to ask the dog, so 2 of those dogs that have problems know beautiful sits. So reinforcing that sit before the dog jumps on me, or before the dog humps me, is a much better way to go. So you could almost always tell in those 2 of those dogs when they were thinking they're hunching up more, they're getting more still. So you want to try to do something with the food or ask for the behavior before that. Then when this other dog was going back to the kennel, so it was jumping up on the way back, so I just stopped. I waited for the dog to get off of me. I took a step. If I had a step, then I was rewarding that step. If the dog was jumping up on me again, I was stopping. Then I would ask for a sit. I wasn't necessarily rewarding the sit with the hot dog. I was rewarding the sit with good dog, and then I was taking another step and trying to get the dog to understand the reward was when we were walking and your feet were on the floor. But if you're jumping on me, we're stopping. I'm going to ask you for a settling behavior. I'm going to say good dog, And then to get the high value reward, you have to take a step without jumping on me. So again, we don't want to reward the dog for jumping on me, then get the treat for getting off of me. I needed the dog to have a behavior, even if it was this long, a nanosecond of behavior. So I know I didn't get to the dog introduction thing, but I can, since that was more staff. Yeah. So other questions, because I want to make sure I answer all of your
Well,
questions.
I actually kind of, are volunteers going to be doing helping more of like the adoption pathway and stuff where we agree to live?
It's a possibility, and that's something that we are going to invite Connie back to you guys.
Okay.
This is not the only time you'll see her. So when we do, we will make sure that everybody gets an opportunity.
Because I mean, obviously we do.
Yes.
We do a lot of, we do a lot of
Separate.
separate.
I think it's separate for.
Yeah.
Was anyone here when Amy Sadler came? So, 2 people. So we had a 2-day seminar here at this shelter for dog play groups. So, but at least 2 people were here. So,
Yeah, that was before my time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Otherwise I would have.
no. And again, dog play groups are fun, but they're hard. And you really, really have to understand canine body language. And you have to have nerves of steel and not just freak out at every growl or lip lick or showing of the teeth, because that's almost always normal canine behavior.
But I think seeing like dog would actually be beneficial for a lot of the volunteers. Just because then people know what to look, just knowing what to look for,
Right.
and seeing it in real life.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and it sounds like it's on the agenda, but it's also one of those things that I think now after doing this talk, I know that I wouldn't want to do it on top of this in the same day because I'm too tired and I'm probably going to make a mistake somewhere along the line. So it'd probably be something more that we would have to do. Because like, I've been to 2 dog, Amy Sadler and Robin Bennett, and both of them are 2-day seminars. So, you know, if they're giving 2-day seminars on how to do dog introductions, it's not something that we want to just rush through. And because it's also one of those things that you have to see a lot of it and start to get almost a sixth sense about what the dogs are doing.
I totally use my gut when I'm
Yeah.
doing dog.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times when I do client dogs, I've either used Batman, who passed away, or Skywalker now, because my dogs tell me things that I don't see. If I'm worried about an interaction and Skywalker's like, why are you stopping me? I like that dog. Then I'm gonna go, okay, yeah, he's not stupid. Or if I try to get him to go into a yard and I think that it looked okay through the fence and he doesn't want to go in, I'm going to go, okay, and you know what? I'm not going to risk my dog because my dog is telling me.
Exactly.
So a lot of times if you can have a couple of really savvy dogs that are dog savvy, sadly you can also ruin a dog in a shelter setting.
And
So
we
you
try really
can't,
hard not to do
yeah,
that.
right. Because I know that I've seen it happen to a couple of really good dogs.
Actually, we
It's
just
super
had
stressful.
one that was one of the best with dogs I've ever seen in the years since I've kept this in here. And he just went to rescue. He was absolutely phenomenal with other dogs.
Yeah.
And it's like you would have loved to have kept him here.
Right.
But
then
that's
again,
not fair to,
it's-
that's not
but it's
fair
stressful.
to him. Absolutely.
So it's like constantly being at a party where you have to know all of the nuances of what's going on and you never get to take a break. So it's hard to learn all that. So someone else had a question. Yes. Right. So the question is, you guys are not consistent, but the potential adopters come in and screw everything up, and they're just walking the dog. So this is when you have to have the bank that I talked about. If most of the bank's deposits have been the appropriate reinforcement history, then the dog will be forgiving more of anything that's not being reinforced the right way. So, but dogs are, it's called a variable reward schedule. It's the same thing as a slot machine. So if you ever go play a slot, are you gonna keep playing the slot if you never get paid? No. But if every once in a while you get paid, you're gonna play. So for the dog, the rate of pay has to be high enough to keep the behavior that I want. Otherwise the dog is gonna go, I'm gonna go to a new slot machine, I'm gonna go do something else. So you want to make sure that as many behaviors are heavily reinforced as possible so that things like that don't happen. So again, unless you live in a bubble or you're like all Chicago where people can't go into the kennels, the dogs have to come out to the patron, you look at the dog, the volunteers bring the dog out, and they do all the interaction. So again, it's either way, yes, because patrons aren't getting bit, so a lot of times the patrons go in, they cause dog bites because they're staring at the dog, they're seeing the dog's bad behavior, versus if a person who knows the dog takes the dog out, then the patron gets to see the dog at its best behavior. So, and also since so many of kennel behaviors don't show up in a home, then I want to make sure that the dog looks as good as possible. But again, you've got what you've got. So I try to use it when I see patrons handling a dog. Again, it's one thing if you're wearing your volunteer shirt or you're wearing your staff shirt. Then I'm going to go up to the patron and say, hey, Fluffy looks like he's really jumping around. Would you like to see Fluffy do a better behavior? Look what Fluffy can do. And then I can sell the dog. So I look at this as merchandising. I'm from a long background of merchandising. I am selling this dog to the person. So what we can't do is be complacent and go, oh yeah, the dog, Fluffy is jumping all over these people. What if these were the best home and once they got home, Fluffy was great in their home? Because I didn't say anything, they choose not to get Fluffy and he deteriorates in health. So. I think anything that you can do to make the dog's behavior look better, like if I know a dog knows sit, I'm gonna ask it to sit. Because again, I want the person to think that this dog is smart and he knows the behavior. I do hand targeting a lot because it's easy for any dog to learn. I just put my hand right in front of the dog's nose, reward the dog every time he touches my hand. I can then make the dog stand up. I call this Hi-Ho Silver, give it a cute name. I go, hey look, this dog does Hi-Ho Silver. He doesn't. He knows to hand target, a hand over above his head. And they go, oh my God, he knows Hi-Ho Silver, isn't that cute? So the best trick I ever teach a shelter dog is the cue to vacuum. So you take some treats right in front of your hand, you throw them down, and while the client's looking, or the patron's looking, you go vacuum, and the dog eats a treat. And the people will look at you, how did you train that? So again, sometimes you just have to do something and give it a name. People seriously ask me how, because I would do vacuum with Batman at every demo, and I would always have people come and ask me how to train it. So I have to think of something like that make me sound really smart. Yeah. So think of things like that. So anything, but again, if you know that your behavior, so what I do see happen is a dog that the person is very bonded to, and then the patron wants to see the dog, and the dog won't pay attention to the patron, that I'm probably going to not interact with the dog. Because I want the dog to look at the patron, and I'm going to be handing that patron hot dogs, so that they can go, oh look, he does like me. Yes, he does. And it's not people food unless you sit around eating uncooked hot dogs all the time, which you can't food. Other questions?
I can
Yes.
have a question. When it was back to when you were walking the dog with the tree,
Yes.
because my problem is, the pulling. And so, at first when you were demonstrating, it was almost like you had the dog behind you. I've never been in that position. I'm one of the,
So, yes, if the dog is already ahead of you, you lost.
Right.
Because you can't,
totally. Yeah, I totally get I
Right.
lost.
So, I'm gonna do something to start the game. So, throw the treat behind me while the dog is getting the treat. I'm gonna continue walking.
Okay.
Dog comes up here, treat here.
Okay.
If he gets ahead of me again, I'm gonna stop. He's probably gonna look and say, what are you doing? Look, the cookie's way back there again. The dog is gonna go, oh, hey, wait, that cookie's back there. So he's gonna have to walk up and I'm gonna catch the behavior here again.
Okay, so I have another question, same along those lines. So I had an incident where, like, we were gonna be passing each other, two dogs. So one went like in just a little cranny. And so the person I was with that day said for me to get between the two dogs, even though that person had a dog and then I have the dog. But obviously, because I was like this, I couldn't ever get him to stay over here.
So sometimes it's just keeping the leash shorter.
Sure.
So, or in that situation, I might turn around and walk the other direction.
Okay.
And get the dog out of the situation. So if you get stuck,
Okay.
a lot of times when we get stuck, we just stand there and go, dude, I'm in so much trouble. So sometimes moving is the option you want to choose.
So I should have probably just went back.
Or you could have chosen to go back the other way.
Okay.
So what you don't want to do is get stuck. And you get, because if you're getting frustrated and nervous about what's going to happen, you're just creating a storm of emotions, and the dog is like, I am in a tiny hallway, and this dog must be a killer, because everybody's nervous about what's going to happen when we pass each other. Maybe we should hurt him.
But he was in like a harness, he was in the harness, and I had it wrapped twice here and twice
Right.
on this hand. I thought I had him, but then my son was with me and another gal, and they were giving me direction, and he kept.
So unfortunately, too, you have to think that's not the time you need a direction. You can't, again, the spider's too close to your face.
Yes.
So you want to work on your leash handling skills.
Yes.
Away from that.
Okay.
Okay? Work on your leash handling skills till they're second nature to you. And then you won't be, you'll have that back, you'll have it.
Right.
So you just don't want to, so it isn't helpful when people are giving you a lot of advice when you're in the moment.
Right.
Unless the advice is just move, unless it's dangerous, okay?
Right.
So block it out, don't be stressed, get the dog out of the situation, but think what did I need there?
Right.
Learn what you needed at a different time when you're not stressed.
But the treats probably wouldn't have helped in that.
Only if the dog would perceive that you had them, and a lot of times no, because it's too stressful.
Okay.
So I use my body a lot. So I body block, I use where my treat hand is, I use where I'm touching the dog. These are things there's no substitute for just doing it, is the problem, okay? It's not like I was born, it's just learning and making it be muscle memory for you.
Okay.
Maybe try it with dogs you're comfortable with.
Well,
Yeah.
And people you know, like if you want to try it, because I know the situations you're talking about when we have public coming in and out, and then somebody walking stray dogs, and even if you just say, you stay there, I'm going to go around the corner, and just communicate that way and avoid it, or and just try using like dogs you know maybe, and that aren't as much of a handful to work on the handling when you're not stressed out.
Yeah, that was my buddy day, and I was like, I'm failing this
Oh,
one.
no,
Yeah.
Well, that's, you haven't been doing it very long.
No.
And so, yeah, that's
So other questions?
Okay.
So if anybody wants, stick to the chair. My business cards are up here. My email address is on there. I mean, my phone number's on there too. Email's often the best way to reach me. If you have a specific issue that I can answer via email, I'm happy to answer small questions about the dogs. So let me know, and I'm happy to do that for people, for the facility. So, or I also have tons of handouts. I have a mouthy dog handout, I have pumping handouts. So email me if there's a specific thing, and I may have a handout for it. And if there's a question you're too embarrassed to ask in front of everyone, you can say, you'll be that person. I'm so glad all of you came. Thank you for listening. Thank you. You're welcome. So go forth and help doggies.